Chapter 319. A voice whispered in her ear, "Kill her." In the early morning, Allie suddenly felt a chill. So she woke up. It was Gloria who opened the window of the dormitory and let the cold wind in. At this time, Gloria took a piece of clothing and put it on Ellie. She said in disbelief, "God, you stayed up all night." Allie subconsciously tightened her grip on the clothes draped over her body. She suddenly asked, Did you hear anything?" "Did I? What sound?" Gloria was astonished. Allie was stunned and shook her head. She subconsciously looked at the mirror next to her. She looked so haggard in the mirror. Then she looked at Gloria. She was bright and charming. "Allie, are you not feeling well?" Gloria asked worriedly. "Tell me, what's wrong?" "No." Allie wanted to shake her head. In fact, she shook her head. "Is there something on your mind?" Gloria pressed Allie's shoulder and lowered her head. "Is it about your feelings? Is it about Ryan? You can tell me. We are good friends." "Good friends," Allie murmured and looked at herself and Gloria in the mirror. When their faces were close to each other, why did Gloria's face become so strange? She knew that there was nothing abnormal about Gloria, but why was the Gloria she saw in the mirror so terrifying? Like a monster? "Gloria, if one day I hurt you, what will you do?" Allie suddenly asked. Gloria shrugged and said confidently, "Why would you hurt me? There's a monster in my heart." She couldn't tell which side was the truth between reality and fantasy. Where was this place? Narrow, 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 dark. When she woke up in the middle of the night, she found herself in such a place. They said this was a place for the mental hospital to live. Oh, the wall was covered with soft cotton bags. Allie sat up and looked at her clothes confusedly. Why was a bondage suit? Oh, this was a mental hospital. She couldn't remember how long she had lived here. What did she live here? He couldn't remember. Even if she occasionally recalled some of the things that had happened before, she couldn't tell whether it was her own dream, her imagination, or something that had really happened. Occasionally, the man who called himself a doctor would talk to her. The man said that there was a monster in everyone's heart. Monsters were not scary, but when you ran away from them, they would become stronger and stronger. Finally, one day, it will completely devour you. Is that so? When it is quiet, Allie looks up at the small iron window. Is it like this? Right, what is this place? Gloria? Lynn? Branham? Where are you? Inside the cramped room, Allie was curled up in a corner. She saw monsters with Lynn's appearance, Branham's appearance, and Gloria's appearance, surrounding her one after another. Go away. Everyone had a monster in their heart. The shadows of the trees outside the car window were retreating quickly. It was too dark. In fact, they could only see a continuous piece of black cloth. This is the car? Isn't it that cramped place? Allie quietly leaned against the window, feeling that her life was like the sewage in the sewer, too chaotic and too terrible. She didn't even know why she was in this car. It should be a police car. After all, the driver wore a police uniform. Is there a monster in everyone's heart? It's so ugly. When she was tied to the tree trunk, Allie faintly thought she knew what the two policemen wanted to do to her. But is this reality? Or is it just a nightmare? Once again, she could not tell whether this was just her imagination or if she was really in such an environment. Would she really be in such an environment? Shouldn't she be in that cramped room? The touch was so real. It's really too ugly. Will it feel better if I cover my eyes? I hate this feeling. Everyone has a monster in their heart, an incomparably ugly monster. Please devour me. I don't want to be unable to distinguish between what is real and what is fake anymore. Let the monster devour me. She was so calm that she couldn't even feel the movements of the policemen who were messing with her body, but she was shouting in her heart. Hysterical. A portion of health, a portion of rationality, a portion of friendship, a portion of love, and even a portion of soul. These are all ways for us to profit. She seemed to have heard such words before, and they existed in her mind. Yes, she had met a strange guy and had a strange conversation with him. But was it also real? But no matter whether it was real or not, at this moment, get off my body. Go away. Don't touch me. There was a monster in everyone's heart. It was so ugly, too ugly. Please let me become a monster too. In this way, I don't need to be confused about what is real and what is not, right? Just like the heartless monster in the story. The monster came out from the heart, so it's fine to not have a heart. She tasted the taste of blood. She saw the two policemen who were so frightened that they almost collapsed. Oh, was this scene real? But it didn't matter, because she had already become a monster. The warm blood flowed on her palm like a gurgling stream and slid down her arm. She slowly pressed her bloody palm on the parchment scroll that was slowly unfolding in front of her. The owner of this villa is really good. Looking at his wife who had coaxed his daughter to sleep, Markin relaxed and walked over. He held his wife's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for your hard work." Mrs. Maggie made a gesture of silence and then left the room with her husband. Mrs. Maggie seemed to feel a little cold. She hugged her arms and whispered, "Let's set off at dawn. I always feel a little uncomfortable here." Markin nodded. "I also have the same feeling. No matter what, to build a villa in this place. Well, it's too weird for young people. How's your injury?" Mrs. Maggie reached out and touched the wound on her husband's forehead. She blamed, "Why didn't you shout when you were attacked? If I had heard it, you wouldn't have been knocked out and thrown into the pit." Markin shrugged. "In that case, I had to consider Lena's safety, didn't I? Who knows if she had any accomplices? What if you also got off the car, leaving Lena alone in the car? That kind of environment." "You're right." Mrs. Maggie nodded helplessly. "Well, let's not talk about it. You also go to rest. I want to accompany Lena tonight." Mrs. Maggie's face suddenly changed, as if she was frightened by something. She leaned back against the wall. "What's wrong?" Markin was startled by his wife's strange behavior and quickly asked. Mrs. Maggie's arm was a little bit trembling. She pointed at the corridor window and said in surprise, "Just now, did something pass by?" Markin turned his head and looked over. It was dark outside the window. Nothing. "Are you too tired and saw wrongly? Maybe it's just the shadow of the leaves." "Maybe." Mrs. Maggie rubbed her eyebrows and then gently pushed her husband. "You go to rest. You still need to drive tomorrow." Seeing Mrs. Maggie enter the room to accompany his daughter to sleep, Markin twisted his stiff neck and planned to go back to his room. His room was just next door. After closing the door, Markin frowned as he gritted his teeth and sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, he slowly walked to the front of the mirror and opened his eyes. After that, he pulled down his pants a bit. This damn woman. A few inches below his abdomen, there were several deep red scars, as if they were scratched by some claws. Markin lowered his head and gently touched the scars with his fingers, observing their depth. He didn't notice in the mirror. Chapter 320. Thank you for your guidance, and of course my best friend Allie. She gave me a lot of suggestions. I also want to thank her. In the classroom, Gloria stood up under the enthusiastic applause. Of course, it was also under the tutor's call. The first prize of the Course Design Award, after more than 2 months of selection, finally came out. Allie silently watched Gloria walk to the podium, taking the honor from the tutor's hand, and then revealed a smile. But she lowered her head. She held a pen, scratching the chair again and again. She didn't know how many times she repeated it, and the scratches were deep. Allie suddenly closed her eyes as if she was in another world. But in this world's classroom, the tutor said, "Congratulations, Ellie. Come up, dear Allie. I think you won't be stingy to share the joy with everyone." And she, as expected, stood up slowly and walked to the podium under the gaze of many people. She looked at Gloria, smiling. "First of all, I want to thank my good friend who has been accompanying me." Day after day, Allie felt more and more clearly that there seemed to be another her in her body. She was selfish, jealous, easily angry, and always dissatisfied with herself. She often said to Allie, "What kind of friend are you? Do you think Gloria is really kind? She just looks for superiority from you, because she is better than you in all aspects." It's not like that. She often said to Allie, "Look, she has gained honor, gained love, and was born rich, even she is smart. You have to try your best to catch up with the things she can do easily. As long as she exists, you will always be an ornament, a foil to her excellence." No, it's not like that. So she said again, "Isn't it? At the beginning, do you think Branham is really interested in you? Wake up. He's only interested in Gloria." He's talking to you because he wants to know more about Gloria. He wants to know more about Gloria. You know this, but you still fantasize that he likes you. Even his questions are obviously more about Gloria, but you turn a blind eye to it. It's not like that. It's not like that. She then mocked. Why do you stay with Len? Looking for comfort? Because Len's family is actually better than Branham's? Because Len's grades are always better than Branham's? Because he looks like a dull person, but in addition, he has more advantages than Branham's? Because you're eager to prove that you have a better boyfriend than Gloria? Because you're in a bad mood and sleep with Len, so you just give up on yourself? It's not like that. Finally, she sneered. Allie, you are too ugly. You're really too ugly. She gasped for air, and the other her inside her body seemed to have disappeared. I can't hear those unpleasant sounds anymore, but why? But why? Did I stab Gloria in the stomach with a knife? Crimson blood spread out from her blue and white dress. Alice instinctively pulled out the knife in her hand. She saw Gloria clutching her abdomen and looking at her in disbelief. It's not like that. She blankly looked at Len and Branham beside her, who showed an unbelievable look at the same time. She looked at the shocked look of them rushing over together. It's not like that. It's not like that. She screamed with a hoarse voice. A rapid, frightened and trembling scream was heard. Markin felt something wrong and subconsciously moved his eyes from the wound on his lower abdomen to the mirror. He turned around in an instant. A wave of cold air rose from the soles of his feet and rushed to his scalp like a hot knife through butter. Waves of numbness began to spread from the top of his head to the rest of his body. Cheeks, neck, chest, and arms. It's you. Even though her eyes were cracked open, revealing her scarlet eyeballs, and even though her mouth was cracked open, revealing her beast-like sharp teeth, he could still recognize her as the mental patient, Ellie, whom he had met by the forest beside the highway. Why did she become like this? She was like a banshee. No, she was simply a monster. What do you want to do? Markin was so frightened that he instinctively stepped back and touched the wall of the room. There was no way back. Don't come over. Don't. Markin was so frightened that he accidentally bit his tongue. But she came closer and directly pressed in front of Markin. As the horror approached, Markin crazily stretched out his hands to choke the neck of the banshee, who almost made him collapse. He succeeded in choking the banshee's neck and pushed her to the ground angrily. Markin sat on the banshee's body, still choking her. His hair was scattered, and he was sweating profusely. His eyes were wide open and ferocious. Why did you come back? I won't blame you anymore. I really won't blame you anymore. Why did you come back? Revenge me? But I was just impulsive. I was really impulsive. You've already knocked me out. What else do you want to do to me? Why don't you be taken away? Why don't you go back to the mental hospital? Why do you care about an impulsive person? You crazy woman. Crazy woman. What are you laughing at? Markin felt colder in his body, and his body stiffened uncontrollably, as if something was pulling his body away. Looking at the smile on this horrible face. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Laughing. Squeak. Markin heard a squeak. That was the sound of the door opening, the sound of the door being unoiled for a long time. He turned his head subconsciously and saw his wife, Maggie. I heard something, Mrs. Maggie said subconsciously. She couldn't see the face of the woman who was pinned down by her husband, but she could recognize the clothes. But looking at this scene, it was enough to make her feel confused, and what Markin said just now was also enough. Impulsive? What kind of impulsive was it? Mrs. Maggie's mind was almost occupied by this question. She didn't even think about why the patient who should be taken back would appear here again. Maggie, listen to me. This woman is a monster. Markin said hurriedly, Come here. Help me. What is impulsive? Unexpectedly, Mrs. Maggie blurted out such a question as if she was distracted. You must have heard it wrong. Come here. I can't hold her down. She's a monster. Why don't you investigate it? Why? Mrs. Maggie looked at Markin with surprise and a strange look. I know your character. You won't let yourself suffer losses. Even if you can't investigate the girl's responsibility, you can still get financial compensation from her family. But you didn't even ask if she has a family. It's abnormal. What did you do to this girl? Nothing. Come here, help me. Markin shouted. This woman is a monster. She will hurt us. Come here. You're the monster. Mrs. Maggie endured the agitated heartache. You're the monster. I saw you. What monster? You're the one who wants to kill people. I didn't expect my husband to be such a person. You disappoint me, Markin. The girl was pressed to the ground, and Markin's hands were still strangling her neck. Who wanted to kill who? Stop. Markin. Mrs. Maggie's eyes were red. Don't hurt this child again. Markin looked at his wife's expression in a daze. Suddenly, he understood why this female monster showed that kind of smile just now. That was ridicule. Let her go. You really kill her like this. You're committing a crime. Do you know? Markin, wake up. Mrs. Maggie took a deep breath. Although I don't know how the girl escaped back, I believe that the two police officers shouldn't have gone far. Markin, I don't want to be a witness to testify against you. Stop, okay? Think about Lena. Stop, okay? Lena. Yes, Lena. No. He was absent-minded for a moment, but soon became ferocious. The girl, the female monster's ridicule, seemed to appear in front of his eyes again. His wife saw his true face, and it was more like he was being played with. The image of a good husband all along, just at this moment, was gone. Listen, Markin turned back, gasping and widening his eyes. I don't care if you're a psycho or a monster. You've ruined me, do you know that? You've ruined my family. Do you know that? I won't keep you won't. In the room, evil seemed to be magnified to the limit. It was like a whirlpool, rapidly and violently, pushing people into the center of the whirlpool. You shouldn't have come back. Markin's hands exerted strength at the same time. He promised that this was all his strength. Markin, stop. Mrs. Maggie saw that her husband was completely out of control. At this time, she could only run over in a panic and directly grabbed his arm, trying to stop all this from happening. Suddenly, Markin stopped, and a mouthful of pus and blood spurted out from his mouth. The female monster's arm, unknowingly, had penetrated Markin's chest. The hand that was dyed red was like a claw that was slowly waving its fingers in the air. Mrs. Maggie screamed and fell to the ground in fear. The arm that penetrated her husband's body swung out at this time, and at the same time, Markin's body was thrown out and rolled to the corner. Only then did she see the girl's appearance clearly. Looking at the pool of blood flowing out from Markin's body in the corner, Mrs. Maggie wailed in pain. The female monster was walking towards her step by step. No! Mrs. Maggie shook her head helplessly, curling up her body, and begged, Don't come over. Mom, what are you doing? The little girl was standing in front of the door. She hugged the pillow, and her clean pajamas were a little wrinkled because she had gone to bed earlier. The little girl, Lena, rubbed her eyes as if she hadn't woken up yet, but also looked at the scene in front of her. Suddenly, the female monster turned her body and walked towards the little girl. Lena seemed to be stunned. She looked at this ferocious-looking female monster and hugged her pillow tightly. She stood motionless in the same place. No. Mrs. Maggie immediately scrambled to her feet and hugged the monster's waist with both hands. No, don't hurt my daughter. No. But the female monster's strength was too great. No matter how she pulled and fought, there was no way to stop the female monster's steps. The female monster suddenly waved her arm and swept Mrs. Maggie backward. Mrs. Maggie flew out and fell at the end of the room. Chapter 321. The girl walked back and forth in the small room. The room was really small, so the 16-year-old girl had to turn around and walk to the other side of the room after 3 steps. She repeated the process. How long has she been like this? Through the small glass window on the door, Gloria covered her mouth and turned her head. She couldn't bear to continue watching this scene. Several weeks. Allie's condition seems to be getting worse, so I have to apply for this room for her. Gloria's face was still a little pale because she was stabbed in the abdomen not long after she was discharged from the hospital, so she had to stay in the hospital for a long time. Why did this happen? Gloria leaned on Branham's shoulder, sobbing softly. Branham sighed, touching his arm, which still had some lingering pain. The doctor said that it was cut into the tendons and bones. Although it was connected, it was impossible for him to be as flexible as before. I have told you, you shouldn't come. Gloria just sobbed softly. The doctor had seen too many situations like this, so he said calmly, the patient should be in a state of long-term stress. I've learned that her family doesn't seem to be well off. In addition, from the conversation, I found that Miss Allie has a very serious jealousy, but at the same time, she also has a considerable degree of obedience. She has been the contradiction of self-persuasion, obedience, and resistance. The doctor shook his head and said, you should know what will happen once the nerves are stretched to the limit. It's all my fault. I didn't notice it. Gloria blamed herself and stared blankly at Ellie in the room. Once, she asked me what I would do if she hurt me one day. At that time, if I had noticed, the doctor sighed, everyone has something in their heart that they don't want others to know. Miss Gloria, if this matter becomes your guilt, I'm afraid it's not good for you. Miss Allie's problem didn't form in 1 or 2 days. Doctor, can Allie, can she recover? Len looked at the doctor and asked seriously. I can't answer you. The doctor shook his head. Medication and psychotherapy can help control the patient's condition, but whether it will get better or not still depends on her. The doctor calmly pointed at his heart. In my opinion, the patient doesn't have any mental problems. It's just that there's a person living here that can't let go of. The three of them looked at the figure in the room thoughtfully. Gloria stared blankly. The first time I met Ellie was the first day I moved into her house. I still remember that day. She was sitting outside reading a book, wearing a dress. Now that I think about it, she was very quiet back then. It seems that she hasn't changed all these years. Branham pressed Gloria's shoulders from behind and comforted her. Gloria smiled with a complicated expression. At first, she didn't want to be friends with me. Whenever I called her from the other side of the fence, she would run straight back into the house. One day, Gloria recalled, one day, she suddenly walked to the fence and took the initiative to call me for the first time. She asked me if I really intended to make friends with her. If so, she would share half of the cookies with me. But I didn't control my mouth. Branham knew that Gloria didn't blame him, but she was recalling the memorable memories of her childhood. The next day, I took some candies from home and shared half of them with her. We were like this when we were young. We didn't want to care about anything. We wanted to share everything with each other. Gloria whispered, that's it. More than 10 years have passed. We have grown up and are not like before. Looking at Allie in the room, Gloria asked softly, Branham, what do you think she is thinking? Lynn thought for a while and said uncertainly, maybe it's a world that she wants. Will it be us? Probably. Allie in the room suddenly stopped moving and just looked up at the small iron window leading to the outside. No one knew what she was thinking. Mrs. Maggie was pleading weakly. She couldn't move and was swept away and heavily fell to the ground. She could only watch as this horrible thing reached its hand out to her daughter. She shook her head in grief, as if she couldn't breathe. She didn't know whether her daughter was scared, but this strange thing's body completely blocked her daughter's appearance. When her palm fell on Lena's face, Lena instinctively stepped back, but she was quickly pressed by the other's hand on her shoulder. Lena raised her head, looking at the cracked eyes and the cracked mouth. She couldn't recognize that this was the big sister who had finished the story for her. The little girl asked nervously, Are you Mr. Monster? But why are you a woman? She, who had turned into a monster, suddenly lowered her head and opened her eyes wider, almost touching Lena's forehead. Are you going to eat Lena? The little girl was shocked, holding her pillow tightly, and was about to cry. Are you going to eat Lena's heart? She uttered an unknown sound from her throat. Hiss! Lena, run! Quick! Behind her, Mrs. Maggie screamed in horror. She began to hold Lena's cheeks with both hands and suddenly opened her mouth wide. Her mouth had bitten 2 policemen's bodies and was stained with Markin's blood, so it was bloody red. Lena closed her eyes at once and lowered her head. Can you not eat Lena's heart? Lena can give you half of it. Lena doesn't want to lose her heart. Lena doesn't want Mom and Dad to lose sight of Lena. Can I give you half of it? Can I? Her closed eyes slowly opened, and Lena found that this Mr. Monster, Sister Monster, didn't seem to eat her. But the moment she opened her eyes, the other's horrible eyes were still looking at her. Lena was frightened again, but this time she didn't close her eyes again. The little girl didn't know what this thing was. She just naively thought that this was the Mr. Monster who came out of the story, the one who gave his heart to the little girl in the story and became the heartless Mr. Monster. Why did it become like a sister? Lena didn't understand this. Mom said that although Mr. Monster is ugly, it is very kind. Mr. Monster will pick a lot of delicious fruits for the little girl to eat. Can't you remember? Little Lena hugged her pillow tighter, but Lena can only give you half of it. More is okay, but you can't take all of it away. Otherwise, Lena won't know where to go if she loses her heart. Okay. She suddenly pushed Lena away, then lowered her head, looked at her hands, and looked at her own appearance in the mirror next to her. Suddenly, she stopped moving. Lena looked at her in surprise, only to see this strange monster sister suddenly move and walk past her. Just like that, she walked away step by step. She went down the stairs. Lena. Mrs. Maggie crawled over from the ground. After a while, she finally crawled to her daughter's side and hugged her excitedly. She touched her daughter's face with trembling hands and kept looking at her daughter's face. Lena, are you all right? Did you hurt yourself in any way? Don't be afraid. Mom is here. Lena is fine. Lena patted her mother's head and then said, Mom, will that Mr. Monster come back? I just saw Mr. Monster cry. So pitiful. Mrs. Maggie looked back involuntarily. Markin was still lying in the corner, in a pool of blood, and probably would never move again. Pitiful? Who is more pitiful? Mrs. Maggie suddenly thought. No one is more pitiful than the other. She went downstairs and came to the living room of this small villa. She subconsciously walked to the terrace outside the living room and kept looking at the dark lake. Do you want to sit? Chapter 3:22. On the balcony, the water was cold, the wind was cool, and the moon was bright. Lucio, accompanied by a maid, seemed to have been sitting here for a long time. 16. The beer in the cup on the small tea table was also half drunk. A slightly bitter taste was swirling in Lucio's mouth. He looked at Ellie as if he was responding to the way she looked at him when she was dragged away by 2 police officers not long ago. Am I very ugly now? It sounded like a burning vocal cords vibrating after being stabbed in the throat with a poker. Allie also looked at this mysterious young man and asked again, Am I ugly now? Lucio thought seriously for a while, saying, A few months ago, I met an even uglier one. Boss Luo recalled the scene when he saw the little butterfly monster for the first time. There were pustules all over her body, and some of her breasts had been broken. Believe me, that look was at least much more horrible than you are now, of course, from a human's point of view. Really? Allie didn't look at Lucio anymore. She looked at the lake, saying quietly, I can't imagine it. I'm afraid it will appear in front of me. I don't know which side is real. I just saw myself in the mirror. I don't know whether the one in the mirror is real or not. But, after a long silence, Allie finally said softly, But it's really ugly. It's too ugly, beyond my imagination. It's really... Lowering her head, Ellie leaned against the wooden plank on the edge of the balcony. She could vaguely see her reflection in the lake with the help of the light from the house. She looked at her own reflection. It's so ugly. Can you describe it? Lucio stood up, walking to Allie's side, looking at the reflection in the lake with her. Allie stretched out her hand, pointing at the eyes in the reflection. This is my jealousy. You see, it cracked and became ferocious. I know that Gloria is really my good friend. She never thought of getting anything from me, but I can't help but be jealous of her. Allie pointed at the mouth of the horrible face in the reflection. This is my deception. You see, it also cracked. It can't be fixed. I don't like Ryan, but I haven't told him. I've been enjoying his kindness to me. I know Gloria very well, but I always have a smile on my face. So her finger turned a circle, encircling the whole reflection. After a while, she said softly, This is me, the jealous, the dishonest me, the real me. After that, Allie didn't say anything. Lucio accompanied her. They stood like that for a long time. Suddenly, Allie said softly, Can I ask you one last thing? I have all my remaining. Of course. We never refuse a guest request. Luo Chio smiled. I'm so terrible. Ali smiled bitterly. Her cracked lips made such a bitter smile look more horrible. I hurt too many people, even myself. I can't turn back. But at least... She stopped talking, silent. Her cracked eye sockets were ferocious, but there seemed to be a soft light moving. But at least, the little guy who is willing to give me half of his heart can live well. You think of yourself as her. I see. Luochio nodded slightly. Thank you. Ali turned around. Looking at Luochio, her cracked eyes and lips slowly healed. When she smiled, she seemed to have returned to the past. Ali closed her eyes and let her body fall freely into the lake. Just like that, she slowly sank into the dark and bottomless lake. The calm surface of the lake was still calm, but there was a faint pink glow. After a flash, a ball of light slowly emerged from the lake and finally fell into Luochio's palm. At this time, the little girl Lena was still hugging her pillow. Nobody knew when she came downstairs. Her face was a little pale, walking barefoot on the ground with the pillow. Her pajamas seemed to be more wrinkled. She walked to Luochio and Yuye's side, saying pitifully, "Big brother, big sister, my mother is missing, my father is also missing. Do you know where they are?" Luochio put away the ball of light in his hand, reaching out to grab little Lena's hand, saying softly, "I'll take you back to your mother." Really? Luochio didn't say anything, holding Lena's hand, and went out of the door. Several kilometers away, on the road by the lake, an ambulance and a police car were parked. In front of these three cars, there were three different cars. They crashed into each other, and blood flowed all around them. Several paramedics were busy moving the bodies of two police officers out of one of the three police cars that had collided with each other. One of the paramedics shook his head, looking at the two policemen who had been moved out. No breath, confirmed dead. Later, they carried out a girl who was still wearing a detention uniform from a private car and laid her flat on the ground. Then, they carried out the bodies of a couple and a little girl from another private car. The two policemen were dead, and the doctor who came with the ambulance was giving first aid to the girl in detention uniform and another family of three. "Doctor, this gentleman's heart stopped," a nurse said helplessly at this time. "Doctor, this girl's heart also stopped. This lady is breathing," another nurse said quickly at this time. The doctor didn't have much joy because the little life in his hand still didn't get better. Her injury was too serious. "Don't give up. You still have relatives. Don't give up." The doctor shouted loudly and kept performing CPR on the little girl. He squeezed the little girl's chest hard and regularly, saying quickly, "Listen, child. Wake up. I know you are strong enough. Child, listen to me. You still have to go to school. You still have to meet many friends. You still have a complete life waiting for you. Don't stop here. Child, breathe, 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 breathe." On the side of the road, Erex was closing his eyes, showing an extremely intoxicated expression. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. "It seems that Mr. Erex has finished his dinner, hasn't he? It seems that Boss Luochio also made a good business, right?" When he turned back, he saw Luochio. Boss Luo was holding a little girl, but Luochio didn't look at him, just looking at the scene of the accident. Erex smiled embarrassedly. He took off his hat and said in a humble tone, "Believe me, it's really just an accident." At this fork, Miss Ellie and Mr. Markin's car collided with each other, and the police car behind them wasn't spared either. Erex narrowed his eyes and said, "Your humble servant called the ambulance at the first moment. But as you can see, these people's souls have left their bodies." "It's all right," Luochio said indifferently. Luochio lowered his head, patting little Lena's shoulder, pointing to the front, and said softly, "It's time to go back. Your mother is waiting for you." "Big brother, where is Mr. Monster?" Little Lena walked 2 steps forward and suddenly turned back and asked. Luochio said softly, "There is no monster. Monsters are just things that we make up for ourselves. Go back, or we'll be late." Little Lena nodded and gradually walked to him. "Breathe, breathe, 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 breathe. Oxygen. Nurse. Oxygen. Great. That's great." She's finally saved. Looking at a group of medical staff dancing and cheering for saving a life, Erex put on his hat again. He looked at Luaccio, then goodbye, Boss Luaccio. He gradually disappeared into the woods behind him, and his figure gradually disappeared in the darkness. He always carried a big suitcase, traveling all the time and never staying in any place for too long. Luaccio silently looked at the place where Erex finally disappeared, shaking his head and muttering, "Eating so much, he's not afraid of being full." Erex probably couldn't hear this sentence, because he was already a few kilometers away, leaning against the edge of the dark lake. He was in a very good mood. It was just a job, and he had a delicious meal. The successor of the former boss. That's much more interesting. Erex smiled, but his smile froze in an instant. Erex subconsciously covered his stomach, revealing a painful expression. He knelt on the ground with one knee. After a while, he seemed to be able to catch his breath. He looked at the calm lake, smiling bitterly. It should be much more terrible. Isn't it too stingy? It hurts. Dream-eating taper, Mr. Erex had a stomachache. "Master, the hot water for the bath is ready." The servant girl came from the darkness, but she found her master was squatting by the road. Luaccio picked some flowers that seemed to have just bloomed among the wildflowers growing by the road. Finally, when his hands were full of flowers, Luaccio stood up. He held these flowers, walking to the scene of the accident, to the side of Ali, who was lying quietly. Her body was already cold, without breath and life. She seemed to be peaceful, with a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Luaccio gently put Ali's hands in front of her abdomen, and then put down the flowers in his hands. "Miss Ali, it's actually very beautiful." Yuyi accompanied Boss Luo and said, "You also have some." Boss Luo seemed to be in a good mood, so he gave the rest of the flowers to the servant girl. "I'll find a place to put it," she said softly. "Go back. It's almost dawn." When they were young, this is the cookie my mother made for me. She made it for me because I was obedient. Is it delicious? Do you want to eat it? Okay, then I'll share half of it with you. But you have to be my friend, okay? Yes, yes. But let's make a deal. If I'm in trouble in the future, you have to help me. Of course, if you're in trouble, I'll help you too. Don't hide it, because this is a good friend. Will you be my good friend all my life? Okay, my name is Gloria, and you? Chapter 323. In the sea of trees below the cliff of the monastery, the swaying shadows of the trees hid something that was spying on it. "It's really peaceful here, Petchier's monastery." Lamia's put down the binoculars in her hand and jumped down from the tree trunk. As she fell, the lower hem of the black nun's robe fluttered in the wind. The pair of strong but not thick legs stretched out in the air, but the people under the tree did not choose to look at it. First of all, no one dared to provoke the nun. Second, they did not care about such things. Lamia's bent her legs slightly when she landed to cushion the impact of the fall. The nun belonging to the Black Order walked toward the tent station here. It had been a while since she came to this place. Naturally, she had been observing this monastery for a long time. Is the magnetic field still unchanged? For the past few days, Lamia's would ask the people in the tent the same question almost every day. After leaving Romania, the nun assigned here was obviously impatient. Unlike in Romania, she also solved some personal problems in the process of the mission. However, Lamia's always felt that there was something wrong with the process. For example, she did not know how she lost her gun. But in the end, it seemed that the mission of the Black Order was completed. As for Jonathan, he also got what he deserved. She felt very good, but it was indeed a little boring here. They just wanted to find something in this monastery. Originally, they had planned the time of the operation, but because of some unexpected things, they had to temporarily postpone the operation. The machine in charge of monitoring the changes of the holy light in the monastery suddenly detected a strong holy light magnetic field in the monastery. The energy coefficient of the magnetic field was a little too high, far beyond the allocation of the Black Order for this expedition. Angel's Descent. During the training of the Black Order, the nun had been taught more than once that when the value of the holy light magnetic field reached such a level, the possibility of a divine master's descent was very high. The staff in the tent took off the headphones, turned around, and said helplessly, "It's still the same as yesterday. There's no movement, and there's no movement." But with its existence, according to my calculations, the strength of the barrier outside the innermost auditorium has probably been strengthened by more than 2 times. Miss Lamias, are we really not going to consider requesting support from headquarters? The nun lady said indifferently. If you think that the headquarters can spare more manpower, I don't mind you applying now. I'd even be happy to help you apply. I was just asking. He knew that the religious order was short on manpower recently. It was also said that the team from the headquarters that was responsible for excavating the ruins had been lost in the grassland of Curie. Later, they sent some people to replace them, but there was no news about it recently. Nobody knew what happened to the people who came later. Of course, as a low-level member, these are just some things he and his companions talked about during their short break. It was more appropriate for the higher-ups to think about their own matters. Wait, Miss Lamias, the magnetic field's value is beginning to decline. Just as Lamias was about to leave, the staff member suddenly said in surprise. Lamias turned around and squinted at the changing numbers on the screen. She felt that the great spear hidden under her nun's robe was beginning to thirst for blood. Stop your anger and forsake your anger. Don't do evil because of injustice. In the simple stone room, there was only a small window that could bring light. Anatole stood in front of this small light and prayed as usual. He felt that this was his instinct. He had been praying every day since he was conscious. Therefore, even if the holy power in his body had been sealed, and no matter how he prayed, it would not resonate with the holy power, he still did not give up this habit. The iron door of the stone room was suddenly knocked. It was an old monk, his godfather, Morgi. Morgi stood in front of the iron door and gave an imperceptible sigh, but Anatole whispered in the stone room, "My father, why do you sigh?" Morgi shook his head. "My child, please forgive me. I've tried my best. But you can't be released from here." Anatole said quite calmly, "Father, you've done enough for me. Mr. Sullivan just sealed my holy power in the end, instead of abolishing it. He just imprisoned me here, instead of expelling me. Isn't that enough? God said that we should know how to be grateful. Because you picked me up, I was able to live for 20 years. Morgi frowned. "I've watched you grow up. No one knows you better than me. How can you be a heretic? Tell me, Anatole, my child, can't you remember what you've encountered?" Anatole shook his head. Morgi could only nod helplessly. "That lord has gone back yesterday. We don't know when he will come again, so I'm afraid you have to stay here before he comes again." Anatole said indifferently, "There's water and food here. It's enough. The true cultivators in the monastery are much more hardworking than I am." Mog wanted to say something, but at that moment, a loud noise suddenly sounded from outside. At the same time, the ground started to shake slightly. The two people in the conversation frowned subconsciously. Morgi quickly left the confinement area and walked outside. Anatole couldn't keep calm at this time. A kind of uneasiness made him look out of the window blankly. The loud noise didn't stop, but became more and more frequent. It was the sound of explosion. Vaguely, Anatole even heard weak screams. Soon after, Morgi hurried back and appeared in front of the door of the stone room. His forehead was injured and blood almost dyed half of his face red. "Father!" Anatole finally couldn't keep calm at this time. Morgi hurriedly said, "We were attacked. They want to rob the things in the auditorium. Anatole, get out of here quickly." "No, father. How can I give you up? Father, you." Crack. When the door was opened, Morgi had fallen to the ground. He still held the key in his hand, but his chest had been stained with blood. "Forgive me. I can't open the imprisonment of Lord Sullivan on you," Morgi said weakly. "But even the holy light can't work on them. Their bullets seem to be cursed. They easily tore our shield." "Father, don't talk. I'll stop the bleeding for you." No need. You come to my ear. I have something to say to you." Anatole had to lower his head. However, Mog took out something from his bosom and stuffed it into his palm. Please keep the faith in your heart, no matter when or where." But Mog's voice became weaker and weaker. "But if one day you're really confused, If you have doubts in your heart, just go and find Father. Morgie didn't finish his words and closed his eyes. Anatole stared at the thing that the Godfather gave him at the end of his life, a black card. The light shield, transformed by the golden holy light, was easily penetrated by the bullet. Lamias held 2 guns and walked easily in the 13th auditorium of the monastery. The nun lady looked at the last remaining abbot of the monastery. Beside him, several ascetics had fallen in a pool of blood. Without the holy light, you are really worse than a retired veteran. Lamias chuckled. Cursed weapon. The Black Order has developed such a depraved thing. The abbot of the monastery looked very calm. His life seemed to be coming to an end at any time, but he was obviously not afraid. Lamias twirled the silver gun in her hand and smiled. The blood of the Impaler Duke plus some other materials. Although I don't like it very much, the effect is obvious, isn't it? What's your purpose? Sir Abbot, what is hidden under your feet? Sure enough, the abbot's face changed dramatically. You even want to get your hands on it. For the New World, Lamias said indifferently. At the same time, the cursed bullet was shot out of the silver pistol's barrel and penetrated the dean's forehead easily. After waiting for a moment and confirming that the old man could no longer stand up, Lamias took out the walkie-talkie and said, "Let the priest team come in and start to erode the barrier here and take out the holy relic inside. Also, start to clean up all the people here and let our prepared people live here. From now on, Pechiers is our product. Miss Lamias, we caught a guy. He seems to be imprisoned in the dungeon and may have escaped during the chaos. Is there holy power on him?" Lamias asked indifferently. No signs of holy power activity detected. Lamias thought for a while and said, "Those who are imprisoned are either sinners or heretics. Since there is no holy power, let's catch him first. Maybe he will be useful in the future." Got it. Lamias put down the walkie-talkie and glanced at the 13th auditorium. She stretched out her finger and drew a cross in front of the fallen body. Lamias smiled and turned around, putting the gun back in her pocket. For the New World? Who would do that for such a boring reason? The blood on the wall was washed away, and the bodies were taken to a place to be cremated. The door of the monastery was reopened as if nothing had happened. Chapter 3:24. If it weren't for the rapidly increasing incidence of face blindness on the internet in recent years, but it was still within the aesthetic standards of the public and could be considered good-looking, and she had a rather impressive figure, the chances of her being secretly injected with the drug would be very high. This was especially true in crowded places. For example, the airport. Wearing a pair of sunglasses, she frequently turned her wrist to look at the hands of the watch on her wrist, and, at the same time, frequently looked at the exit of the parachute. Suddenly, this person took a step forward and quickly walked over to the exit of the superstation. She should have finally found the person she was waiting for, right? She didn't know which man was so lucky to make her wait here so bitterly. Was it the successful man who simply carried a carry-on bag? Or was it the one with a big belly who had just come out and kept talking on the phone by his ear? Or perhaps it was the father who was slowly walking out with the child in his hand. That's not it. It turned out to be a slightly thin man who simply carried a backpack. Perhaps it was a big boy. She suddenly opened her hands. It seemed that she wanted to hug the boy. No matter what the relationship between them was, it was a very enviable thing, wasn't it? Unexpectedly, at the moment when she was about to hug him, the big boy suddenly stepped back, causing her to hug nothing. So she was stunned on the spot, with her hands frozen in the air. This was King embarrassing. What a waste. Bastard. Some men were regretting in their hearts. Didn't I say you don't need to pick me up? Luaccio looked at Ren, ziling up and down. He planned to return to the club directly after getting off the plane. But before getting off the plane, Boss Luo's eyebrows suddenly twitched, feeling that some bad things were waiting for him. As expected, Sub-Editor Rin suddenly said pitifully, "I took the risk of being fired by the boss to sneak out and come here." Boss Luo said indifferently, "It's a miracle that you haven't been fired these years." Rin Xiling pretended not to hear it and said more pitifully, "Do you know how many tickets I received?" Boss Luo sighed and said, "Uncle Ma, you've worked hard." Ren Xiling almost choked with sobs. Do you know that I haven't even had lunch yet? Luochio pointed at his lips and said indifferently, Before you say that, wipe your mouth. I don't remember you having such a greasy lip gloss. Sub-editor Run then sent out the third finger of her right hand. F***CK. Do you still want to live? Thank you for your hard work, Boss Luo said softly with a smile. Sub-editor Ren's resentment seemed to have been eliminated at once. Her eyes narrowed slightly under the brown glasses. What did you say just now? I can't hear you. I didn't say anything. Let's go. Luochio shook his head and walked past Ren Xiling. Sub-editor Run, who hadn't enjoyed the warm greetings between family members, rubbed her palms. She really wanted to pinch his ears. By the way, where is Yu Yi? Why can't I see her? She didn't pinch his ears in the end. She walked quickly to Luochio, raising her head slightly and asking. She has something to do, so she's on the same shift as me. I see. Ren Xiling complained. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I even booked a seat to welcome you. You won't be used to the food abroad. Hey, wait for me. Brat, wait for me. Hey. By the way, aren't you a bit taller? Hey, F***CK. In sub-editor Ren's beloved car, Ren Xiling rubbed her palms and was about to put them on the steering wheel. She licked her lips and was about to step on the accelerator. Of course, she stepped on it forcefully. Do you have the habit of wearing sunglasses while driving? Unexpectedly, Luochio asked from the co-pilot's seat. It's cloudy today. Ren Xiling suddenly smiled, turning her head, blinking her eyes, and waving her V hand. She was so cute that it gave people goosebumps. She said softly, Don't you think I'm too beautiful now? Luochio shook his head, reaching out and taking off the sunglasses from Ren Xiling's face easily. Ren Xiling's smile suddenly froze. She lowered her head, looking like a defeated dog. Boss, I'm wrong. I shouldn't stay up for 3 consecutive days. Drive. Luochio sighed, putting on the sunglasses for Ren Xiling. You're not angry? Ren Xiling was stunned. Didn't you say you were hungry? Luochio shook his head. I also want to eat something. Since we've booked a place, don't waste it. Oh yeah. The red Mini Lubman suddenly drove into the airport road. Since when did the roles of guardian and guardian start to change? Looking at the backward scenery, Luochio couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Ren Xiling saw that Luochio didn't speak, habitually turned on the radio of the car stereo. Our latest news, a young man and Ling Chung fell to their deaths around 3:30 p.m., suspected to be suicide. The deceased. Ren Xiling subconsciously turned the volume up. The deceased is said to be a student of City 1 High School. At present, the possibility of homicide has been ruled out. According to our understanding, the deceased may be emotionally unstable because of the heavy pressure of studying. Hearing this, Ren Xiling suddenly muttered, Suicide again? Why are there so many suicides recently? Recently? Luochio looked over. Ren Xiling nodded. Yes, it's the 4th one, right? They're all students. Is there so much pressure of studying now? It feels weird. Watch the road. Wow. F***CK. Do you know how to drive? Old driver. Hey, in the hall of the club, an old record player whose production date was unknown was playing a song called Ian Get Seduction. Following the rhythm, in front of the lobby bar, Taeyenzi was holding a cup of tequila. He was still wearing tights, but he didn't have an afro anymore. He was slowly rocking and enjoying it very much. By the way, Taeyenzi would also sing a few lines, although the tone was very good. Unlike those black soul envoys who completely belonged to the club, as an old ghost who only signed a 500-year term, Taeyenzi felt that he was at most an outpost. It didn't matter if he didn't work so hard. Besides, relying on performance to reach the top and successfully stepping on the club's maid. He had already given up this unrealistic idea. How good was it now? The boss wasn't here, neither was the black-hearted maid. He could do whatever he wanted. It was simply too awesome when the boss wasn't here. Hey, Ian, get seduction, love. Hey, while rocking slowly, Taeyenzi slowly moved his body to the front of Chinchiyu. This woman disappeared a while ago, but came back after a while. Unfortunately, the boss had gone on a trip at that time. However, as a person who had the temporary right to live in the club, Even if Tianzi didn't want to, he couldn't do anything to Qin Shiyu. Yu Sanyang. Besides, he couldn't beat her at all. However, how could the 500-year imprisonment be gone with the wind? Even if he couldn't beat her, he could still disgust her to death. He knew she didn't like such a noisy environment. Did she want to use the mysterious power of the club to temper her mind? How could Tianzi, who saw through Qin Shiyu's thoughts, easily let her meditate peacefully? Hey, Tianzi walked around Qin Shiyu, his voice becoming more and more unrestrained. He knew Qin Shiyu couldn't do anything to him, so he became more and more complacent. Qin Shiyu, who was resting with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes at this time, saying indifferently, "Doing nothing and not doing your job. Aren't you afraid your boss will blame you when he comes back?" Hey, bitch, it's been 500 years. Haven't you heard the old saying that the emperor is far away when the mountain is high? Tianzi said disdainfully, "Let me tell you. Now, the master isn't here, and the other black soul envoys aren't here either. I'm the boss here, do you understand?" You? Qin Shiyu glanced at him indifferently. 500 years ago, Tianzi couldn't stand this bitch's contemptuous look. 500 years ago, he couldn't stand it, let alone now. Tianzi sneered, "Why can't I? I'm the envoy transformed by the master himself, the rightful person here. And you, at most, are just a shameless tenant who wants to stay here. No, you're not even a tenant." Qin Shiyu didn't say anything, slowly closing her eyes. Tianzi didn't intend to disturb Qin Shiyu's state of mind. At this time, he approached her, lowering his head, and said with a gloomy smile, "Although you can stay here, you're not just a servant. Do you know what a servant is? It's a thing to serve people. Bitch, since you're wearing this troublesome maid uniform, why don't you serve me obediently? Go get me the water to wash my feet." "Oh, really?" "Yes, that's right." Tianzi nodded, drinking the tequila in the cup happily, but before he swallowed it, he felt something wrong. The voice that responded to him just now didn't seem to be the voice of the bitch Qin Shiyu, but it was obviously a woman's voice. Except for this bitch, there was no other woman's voice here. And the voice is so familiar. Miss Yi. Tianzi, who turned around doubtfully, suddenly became stiff. He couldn't hold the cup firmly, and directly fell from his palm. But the moment the cup finally fell to the ground, it slowly flew into Miss Maid's palm. Yu Yi smiled, walking slowly to Tianzi, and said softly, "Hold it firmly. Don't be careless next time." "Oh, it's almost finished. Let me add some more for you." "Tianzi." "Sir." The gentle tone made Tianzi feel as if he had eaten a piece of 1,000-year-old ice, and the chill rose from the soles of his feet to his head. You're welcome," Miss Maid smiled. "It's okay. You said it yourself. A person like me who wears this kind of maid uniform is a servant. Although I didn't grow up in the East, but I can still understand servant and know what it does. Servant, of course, should serve people, right? Let me get you the water to wash your feet, okay?" The 500-year-old ghost's legs suddenly became soft, kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy in a down-to-earth manner. "Miss Yi, please let me go. This is a big deal." Chapter 325. His breathing, his heartbeat, and even his footsteps. He could clearly hear every sound that belonged to him. Besides that, he seemed to be unable to hear anything else. His footsteps finally arrived at the iron gate of the rooftop. He was about 17 or 18 years old. His line of sight seemed to be narrowed infinitely. He could only see a little bit in front of him. The surroundings seemed to be blurred. He opened the iron gate. The moment he opened the door, the wind from the tall building hit his body, blowing his clothes close to his body. He was still panting, but it was not because he climbed all the way to the rooftop. His heart was also beating rapidly, but it wasn't because of the strenuous exercise he had done. He was nervous, but he still gritted his teeth. As if he was possessed, he walked step by step toward the wall of the rooftop. His breathing became faster because he was climbing over the wall. On the other side of the wall, there was an empty space. Below was the road, which was more than 50 meters high. But this residential building was not the highest in the neighborhood. His legs trembled. After crossing the wall, the place where his feet could stand was only the edge of the eaves, which was less than half the width of his feet. His hands were still holding the wall. Every inch of his back was tightly attached to the wall. Suddenly, he glanced at his feet. His body seemed to be tilted infinitely. A feeling of impending death hit the depths of his soul, making him instinctively close his eyes. He felt as if his body was spinning. No matter how hard he tried, he could not stand steadily. Suddenly, he took a few deep breaths and then shouted out. He was letting go of his hands. But at the moment when he was facing death, the scene of a family of 3 eating quickly flashed through his mind. The young boy suddenly turned around. Flustered and clumsy, he climbed over the wall again and returned to the safe place inside the wall. His face was pale. He leaned against the wall and slowly slid down. His eyes were blank. Suddenly, he felt cold. So he curled up. But the day was not over yet. He did not know how much time had passed. He took out his phone from his pocket and typed, I failed. I can't do it. I'm sorry. He sent it out. I'm sorry. You miss ye. It was this old Taoist who deserved to die. I've been cultivating for 100 years and meditating in the white jade token for 500 years, but I still can't see through the 7 emotions and 6 desires in my heart. I let anger control me and do such a shameful thing. Can you put me down? You look terrible. Logically speaking, onyx soul could transform into black smoke and change its form, so it shouldn't be trapped. But this time, Tainzi could not move at all. He didn't know where the thing that bound him came from. Tainzi, didn't you say that you wanted me to punish you and make you reflect? Miss May didn't even look at him. She just lowered her head and carefully wiped the cup on the table. It was Boss Luo's cup. You're right. Tainzi sighed helplessly. He had nothing to say. He stealthily glanced at Qin Shuyu, who was sitting quietly in the corner with her eyes closed. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Tainzi's eyes really turned red at this moment, thinking of those hurried things that happened 500 years ago. F***CK. Similar things seem to have happened 500 years ago, but Qin Shuyu seemed to be thinking about something. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked towards the door of the club. Before her, Miss Maid had already walked out of the platform. She didn't know when she had taken action, but now she was standing in front of the door. Of course, before taking action, Miss Maid conveniently stuffed the rag in her hand into Tainzi's mouth to stop him from talking. Ding! When the wind chime in front of the door rang, the boss of the club had already arrived. Luochio carried a small bag and looked at this familiar haul. Miss Qin, have you come back? Qin Shuyu said indifferently. After Qin Fong's property was changed, the money has been handed over to Gao Rui's daughter. Really? Luochio smiled. Thank you for your hard work. Qin Shuyu suddenly said, I didn't tell her anything about Gao Rui and Qin Fong. Luochio nodded, saying softly, Then I'll thank you on behalf of the professor. Oh yes, this is for you. He put the bag in his hand in front of Qin Shuyu. Looking at her, who was a little confused, he said casually, This is a letter for you. Qin Shuyu didn't refuse or thank him. She didn't even look at it. She just nodded and closed her eyes again. Since the boss came back, the mysterious atmosphere in this place began to become active. Obviously, she didn't intend to let go of such an active thing that could temper her state of mind. She's really a diligent person. Luochio glanced at it and didn't look at it again. He didn't have any grudges with Qin Shuyu, even Yu Sanyang, who was her identity 500 years ago. Boss Luo simply observed this strange cultivator from the perspective of a bystander. Although it was hard to comment on what she had done, it was undeniable that she was diligent or persistent. Master, do you need to prepare afternoon tea? No, I'll go to the bottom. After coming back from Russia, Boss Luo had a lot of things that could be used for the sacrifice. The servant girl naturally knew what her master intended to do, so she didn't say anything and continued her daily cleaning work. Before going downstairs, Luochio suddenly turned around, as if he had noticed something, asking curiously, By the way, what did Tianzi do? Master, you finally noticed me. Tianzi suddenly opened his eyes wide and then shook his body. Yi tilted her head and said, It seems that Tianzi developed some strange hobbies during the time we were away. Luochio opened his mouth and looked surprised. Let's see what happened to Tae-Yinzi. First of all, he was indeed tied up, but the way he was tied up was a bit special. The black rope was woven into a cross in front of his chest to form a tight knot. His hands and feet were tied behind his back, forming a U shape. Oh, he was also hung from the ceiling. After a while, Boss Luo recovered and nodded. Well, it's a very special hobby. Master, listen to my explanation. It's not like that. It's really not like that. Tae-Yinzi's mouth was gagged, and he could only make muffled sounds, and his struggling body could only swing like a pendulum clock. Luochio shook his head. It's okay, don't mind me. I think my ability to accept things is not that weak. Well, even if you have this hobby, I don't mind looking at you with prejudice. Oh, by the way, this binding technique seems good. Have you practiced it for a long time? It's really not like that. I'll leave the store to you for the time being. It may take a long time this time. Luochio didn't look at Tae-Yinzi, but looked at Yu Yi. Got it. Therefore, the servant girl stood in place and respectfully watched her master walk into the corridor leading to the lower floor. Tae-Yinzi's eyes opened wider, and he finally succeeded in pushing the cloth out of his mouth with his tongue. At the moment when the boss disappeared, he blurted out, "Listen to my explanation." Boss Luo disappeared. Tae-Yinzi felt the deep malice from Miss Maid, whose heart was as black as ink in the club. I'm finished. My reputation is completely ruined. Perhaps Qin Shuyu, who was concentrating on comprehending with her eyes closed, also sensed this scene and smiled faintly. She probably felt it was interesting. Colorful, pink. When the light ball entered the altar, Luochio thought of the question he had a long time ago. Where did they go after all? Or what would they bring to the altar? He didn't know. The only thing he knew was that the sacrifice this time had given him a feeling of fullness, and all kinds of strange abilities had been strengthened by quite a bit. But this was something that would increase as long as he completed the transaction. Now he didn't care too much about it. What he cared about was that he got the second gold and silver card. What kind of change will the second card bring to the altar? Let me see. The golden and silver cards were still in front of Luochio. At the same time, the altar slowly rose again, revealing its hidden part. To be continued. Chapter 326. Rolling black smoke that looked like water was seeping out from the bottom of the rising altar. Luochio, who had experienced such a situation not long ago, wasn't surprised at all. When all the hidden parts of the altar were lifted up, Luochio walked directly in front of it. One of the 7 card slots had been embedded. Different from the first time, the altar seemed to be more active this time. The second gold and silver card floating in the air slowly flew into one of the card slots. It wasn't adjacent to the first one, but 2 slots apart. It seemed that there was a certain corresponding method. While thinking, Luochio raised his head and looked at the projection on the altar. This projection hadn't changed since the first time it appeared. It was a pale and deathly still sphere. Earth. After Boss Ren's second gold and silver card was inserted into the slot it belonged to, time seemed to have paused for a moment, but it also disappeared as if it was a natural thing to do. Because it was only less than a second, Luochio could accurately grasp his own time. His existence was no longer due to metabolism, because everything that determined his existence had been concretized into a numerical value. And this numerical value was time. He didn't have a fixed time, which was a fixed lifespan. It seemed that the most accurate counter was hidden in his body. So he knew his time better than anyone else. Nothing? Luochio frowned at this time. After the second gold and silver card was embedded, it didn't meet his expectations. The altar didn't change at all, so Luochio subconsciously observed the newly added gold and silver card. However, he vaguely sensed something amidst the strange pause. Luochio closed his eyes and began to recall. Did nothing really happen? No, it was like water dripping from a stalactite into a pool. A ripple spread out with the altar as the center. The speed of the ripple was immeasurable. In a flash, it spread to a distance that couldn't be seen clearly, as if there was no end. Luochio just had a feeling that he seemed to have opened some kind of mechanism. When Luochio came up from the lowest level, it had already been more than 2 hours since he went down. In the end, he could only give up for the time being. The former boss wouldn't ask Arex to send the second golden and silver card for no reason. Even the former boss didn't know that Luaccio had actually found the first golden and silver card by accident. He asked Arex to send this card to him. Maybe he just wanted him to notice the hidden part of the altar. Are you trying to pique my curiosity so that I can collect the remaining cards? That was probably the only conclusion that could be drawn. Of course, he didn't think that his predecessor was scheming against him. Every club owner had a mysterious sixth sense. Ever since this feeling was born, it had never been wrong. Regarding this matter, Luaccio couldn't feel the slightest bit of malice. Moreover, Arex said that his ex was dying. "Master, you're up." "Yes, I stayed for a while." Luaccio answered casually, but he saw a different smile on the servant girl's face. "What happened?" Luaccio asked curiously. "Master, the critical door is opened." "Isn't it a happy thing?" Yi congratulated him softly. "Critical door?" Luaccio gave a start. Who the hell knew what the critical door was? Yi was stunned, covering her mouth with her fingers. "You didn't know? I thought it was opened by Master." "Take me to see what it is." Luaccio frowned. He thought the critical door would be somewhere, but he never expected that it was in the club's lobby. In the middle of the hall, apart from the old wooden door that allowed customers to enter, there were two more black doors. They stood upright on both sides of the lobby. The black doors didn't have handles. Qin Shiyu seemed to be surprised by the sudden appearance of the two doors. At this time, she was silently observing Luaccio standing in front of one of the doors. Without saying anything, he pushed the door in front of him open. The black door stood upright without sticking to the wall. So theoretically, it would lead to the middle if it was opened. But obviously, Luaccio didn't see such a situation. He only saw that the open door seemed to lead to another world. Of course, this was just a feeling, because what could be seen through the doorframe was obviously a black whirlpool. "Master, please follow me," the servant girl suddenly said softly. Not long after, they walked to the second floor of the club. Yi said with a smile, "Master, the so-called critical door is actually a channel for customers. It's to make it more convenient for customers to come to our club at any time." "Be careful." Yi nodded. "Well, it's like a network. In different places all over the world, there are points for setting up clubs. As long as you are in the vicinity of this point and are qualified to be a guest of the club, you can summon the door from this point. Through the critical door, you can let the customers come here." "Teleport?" Luaccio gave a start. "Like I could go to any place I want to go." Of course, Boss Luo only wanted to go to the city he was in, but it seemed that the distance had increased a lot. Luo vaguely felt that he should be able to freely travel to several nearby cities. This time, he would return after sacrificing those souls. Of course, it's not a physical teleportation. Yi shook her head. Customers pass through the critical door, and their spiritual bodies come here to discuss in detail. Well, their projections. "Well, Master, now you can light up 2 of the network points." "Only 2. Luaccio gave a start. He saw that there seemed to be nothing wrong with the 2 doors corresponding to 2 points. However, he originally thought that this was because all of the points could activate the critical gate. "Well, 1 door corresponds to 1 point." Yi said softly. "The appearance of the critical door means that Master's ability has increased another step. When your ability is stronger, you can light up more points." Boss Luo said subconsciously, "When the previous boss was here, how many points were there?" Yi shook her head. "I'm not sure, but from the customers I've met, there were at least 300 points. Only the boss himself knows how many points there are." 300. It was like there was no harm without comparison. Of course, Boss Luo didn't care much about this kind of harm. It was still unknown how many years he had been in power, but he knew better than anyone how long he had been in power. Less than 5 months. Luaccio could light up 2 of the existing points, but he could also add 2 new points according to his preference. But once the points were opened, he had to burn his lifespan as the price to close them. Why did it burn? Because the price to close a point was 100 years of lifespan. But it was undeniable that the life of the points was quite humane. Damn it. Customers could come here through the critical door even if they were on the other side of the ocean. It wasn't convenient for Boss Luo, but it was convenient for the club's purpose. 300 points. Can we fit 300 doors in the lobby? Luaccio suddenly thought of another question. There are only two critical doors, but different points can overlap with the passage of the door, so it doesn't take up much space. This is probably the best news I've heard, Luaccio said, but how to open this point, I'll think about it. Miss Maid had no opinion on the master's decision. This wasn't something that could be opened casually. Luaccio had his own plan. Once the points were opened, he couldn't close one of them for a long time. Even if he could open more points in the future, Luaccio planned to control these points to a certain extent, or even not to open any of them. 300 points, or even more, it sounded awesome. It was like a cloud of customers coming. But have you ever thought that the customers would line up to open the door and come to the lobby, and you wouldn't even have time to go to the washroom? What kind of experience would that be? Luaccio suddenly understood why the former boss didn't care about anything after the deal. Was it because there were too many customers and he lost interest in follow-up? The more business he did, the less time he had available to him. Another problem was that Yu Yi thought that Luaccio opened the door himself. Then he assumed that when his ability reached a certain level, he could open the critical door on his own initiative. Since it was something that could be opened on his own initiative, it meant that he had the relevant cognition. But obviously, he didn't have such cognition now. That was to say, this was an upgrade brought by the second gold and silver card. The power of the club didn't need to be improved. As long as the deal was established, its ability was endless. This was more like the opening of the function. A total of 7 card slots. Did it mean that when they were all assembled, all the functions of the club could be opened? But Luaccio didn't understand now. As long as the deal was established, the club could do anything. Then what other functions should it have? Right? Actually, we could have explained it downstairs. Why did you come up? Luaccio suddenly asked in confusion. Miss Maid opened her beautiful blue eyes and said softly, "Since the master doesn't know these things, how can I let others see the master's puzzled side? Wouldn't that be shaming the master?" Yu Yi, you're really great. Boss Luo suddenly had an idea. He wanted to say something, but that strange palpitation was instantly washed away. In the end, he just smiled slightly. To be continued. Chapter 327. Uncle Rat Monster, this is your medicine. Remember to take it 4 times a day. And then, in Long Shua's pet hospital, the little butterfly monster who had been working for some time was counting her fingers and telling the patients what to pay attention to one by one. And then what else? It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. I know it anyway. Uncle Rat Monster waved his hand quickly. No, this is my job. I must do it well. Why? Uncle Rat Monster glanced at the little butterfly monster who had recently become the hostess of the pet hospital and was getting more and more popular. He kept asking himself, why? Why can't you remember what you said to the patient even though you have a math book on the table? Oh, finally, remember to clean your body before going to bed every day. Dr. Long said that you are too dirty and don't take a bath. This is the reason why your skin disease often recurs. This little guy is so cute. If I didn't bring my baby here to get the asthma medicine, I would definitely flirt with him and reminisce about the memories of my youth. Abba, your tail is sticking up. Go away. Uncle Rat Monster pushed his son and left awkwardly. It was just a thought. This purity was almost extinct among the creatures. So Uncle Rat Monster didn't really intend to tarnish it. It was just that he was a middle-aged rat, so it was inevitable that he would lose some restraint. She's really popular, not like that old witch in the office. After saying goodbye to Uncle Rat Monster, Luo Dance suddenly heard such sharp words from the pet hospital's freeloader. Yes, that was what Sister Long called Miss Su Zijuan, freeloader. Sister Zijuan, be careful not to let Sister Long hear you. The little butterfly monster had to remind her, although she knew that this reminder seemed to have no effect. Long Shuo and Su Zijuan were like fire and water. Every time they met, they would quarrel for a while. It seemed that they would feel uncomfortable if they didn't ridicule each other for a day. Su Zijuan snorted coldly, clearly expressing her attitude. I'm not afraid. If she has the ability, let her bite me. The little butterfly monster was already used to this and simply sat down. She touched the bottle of milk with both hands and drank happily. She licked the remaining white liquid off her lips and began to read the book in her hand. What is this? Su Zijuan directly took the book from the little butterfly's hand and casually skimmed through it. Then she indifferently said, "This kind of thing written by humans is just a waste of your time. It's better to cultivate. You're too skinny. If you don't cultivate, when will you become fatter?" Fat. Luo Dance was stunned. She was a butterfly demon who had read an entire Chinese dictionary, but she didn't know why fat could be used to describe the level of cultivation. Su Zijuan said indifferently, "What I mean is more powerful." The little butterfly monster's feet shook under the table, and then she blinked her eyes and said, "But as long as I have enough monster power, it's fine. Sister Long is here. It's very safe. Besides, the things written by humans are very interesting, and I can't understand many of them." Su Zijuan said indifferently, "We've unlocked our spiritual wisdom. Our wisdom is more than 2 times higher than that of humans. It's too bad that you can't understand the things written by humans." The little butterfly monster didn't mind. She wasn't the kind of person who was easily angered and didn't want to argue. When she just stepped out of society, she always remembered what the boss of the bun shop and the aunt taught her. Be kind to others and enjoy themselves with them. "Well, of course I don't understand. Because I've just grown up, I'm not like Sister Sue and Sister Long." Luo Dan smiled innocently. "By the way, Sister Sue, you've seen so much, so your knowledge must be very rich. It's just so." Su Zijuan hummed. The little butterfly monster's eyes brightened, and she quickly opened the derivative book borrowed from another patient child. She turned to one page and said pitifully, "Sister Sue, can you teach me how to solve this problem? I've been thinking about it all day, but I still can't figure it out." Su Zijuan glanced at it casually, and her eyeballs rolled from top to bottom, then from bottom to top and back again. She blinked and stared at the little butterfly monster. Suddenly, Su Zijuan's body slowly lay flat on the ground. Oh, right. Her hands were close to her lower abdomen, like a sleeping princess. Sister Sue? Sister Sue? How could she fall asleep so easily? It's not good to sleep on the floor. For Luo Dance, it was not unusual for Su Zijuan, who had half Hamba blood, to suddenly fall asleep. In fact, she often lay down like this. Don't worry about this shameless girl. Long Shua came out of the office, probably intending to smoke again. She walked to Su Zijuan's side and stretched out her foot to kick her. She sneered and said, "Little girl, let me tell you, this freeloader didn't even go to kindergarten. She doesn't even know how to write her own name. It's impossible for her to teach you." The little butterfly monster was surprised when she heard it for the first time. Long Shua shrugged and suddenly said, "What's the problem today? Tell me." She remembered that 2 weeks ago, Sister Long had taught her about multiplication lists. The little butterfly monster asked, "Sister Long, known function equals A3-32 plus 1. If there's a unique 0 and 0 is greater than 0, what is the range of values of a—" Long Shua nodded calmly and blew away the smoke. She said slowly, "Little guy, I've thought about it. No matter if you're a human or a demon, if you don't work hard, you'll just be a freeloader. It's not difficult to solve this problem, but the question is, have you tried your best?" Luo Dance shook her head subconsciously. "I just thought about it for a while." "I know, Sister Long, I will think about it again. If I can't think anymore, I will ask you." "Well, good attitude." Long Shua walked to the door of the pet center with a cigarette in her mouth. Who the hell knew what A was? Didn't she just learn the multiplication table 2 weeks ago? Humans are so idle. Isn't it enough to add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Long Shua leaned against the door and muttered. But the little butterfly monster's learning ability was beyond her expectation. She remembered that yesterday, or the day before yesterday, this little guy seemed to have mentioned that she wanted to take part in the college entrance examination. It was not difficult for her to get a household registration and open a back door for her. After all, there were a few monsters who had successfully mingled in some units after such a long time. The problem was, I don't even know what it is. What the hell is that? Long Shua suddenly quivered. She quickly threw the cigarette on the ground and stamped it out. Then she rushed into the pet hospital and came to the front desk. She was looking for something in the pile of things at the front desk. "Sister Long, what are you looking for?" "Found it." Long Shirua found a leaflet and threw it in front of Luo Dance. Go to the cram school. This cram school for college entrance examination opened recently, and now it's offering a discount. But I have to go to work. Luo Dance thought for a while and shook her head. Besides, the tuition is so expensive. It's okay, I'll support you. Long Shirua waved her hand and said, Go to finish your studies. Really? The little butterfly monster suddenly jumped up happily. Long Shirua touched her head like a spoiled pet. Well, this time she didn't need to think about what it was. Humph, do you think she's so kind? This old which can only recite the multiplication table at most, and it was taught by the person who made it. Do you think she really went to school? Suddenly, Su Zijuan, who was sleeping on the ground, turned her body and said lightly, as if she was sleep-talking, Long Shirua. Well, I seem to have taken some medicine yesterday and haven't had time to clean it up. I'll go and have a look. She floated away. In the evening, he lowered his head in his room, and his mother sat in front of him. His mother was holding a mock exam paper in her hand. Gu Jiajia, why is this mock exam 4 points lower than last time? Do you know how many people in your class have surpassed you? Just 4 points, I was careless. He intended to say something, but his mother said sternly, Just 4 points? Gu Jiajia, do you know what kind of attitude you have? Don't you know the importance of 1 point? Let me ask you, if you're only 4 points away from the admission line, how will you feel? Will you feel uncomfortable? For points may decide you have to spend 1 more year repeating your studies. Are you willing to waste 1 more year? He could only shake his head. His mother sighed and said, Jiajia, I didn't mean to scold you. Do you know how tired your father and I are working outside? But we don't talk about this when we come back. Save some money at home. We all let you attend 1 more cram school. Why? It's to give you more advantages than others. But have you been lazy recently? He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at his mother's eyes. Seeing this, his mother sighed and shook her head. Think about it. This kind of attitude is not right. All right, I'll take a shower later and rest early. Tomorrow you have to memorize vocabulary. Don't miss the best time of the day. I know. He nodded his head. Well, be good. We only have 1 child. I hope he can be successful. Don't blame me for being strict with you. This is all for your own good. His mother gently patted his shoulder and said softly. When the door was closed and he was left alone in the room, he silently sat for a while and suddenly opened the drawer of the desk and took out the hidden mobile phone. Chapter 328. Sub-editor Ren came to the police station with 2 boxes of biscuits. Of course, to her, the place she was visiting could be described as a place with no one around. Ma Howd, who was playing Minesweeper in the office, didn't even dare to breathe because this was the first time he might get the highest score in history. He had played Minesweeper for more than 10 years, but he had never been like today. Only the last one was left. Ma Ili really felt that he had the help of God today, except that he didn't have a live broadcast. He even wiped the sweat off his palms before he clicked on the last item. Come on, my primordial power. Now it's time to witness a miracle. So he took a deep breath and prepared to fight with his faith of more than 10 years, waiting for the honor to come. The door of the office was pushed open with a bang. Oh ma, afternoon tea. Ma Ili's nightmarish voice suddenly sounded, and his hand subconsciously slipped. Oh, Ren Xiling, you and I are irreconcilable. This biscuit shop's cakes are not bad. Ma Howd took a bite, but looked at this troublesome woman with his usual vigilance. How much is the fine this month? Be honest, I won't do more than 10 tickets. Exactly 10 tickets. Ma Howd pinched his eyebrows, sighed, and simply picked up the second biscuit. Anyway, it's a waste not to eat. This work must be done. It's better to eat more, so as not to let the people outside take advantage of it. Little Luo Chio is back. Yes, got off the plane yesterday. Oh, yes, this is a letter he asked me to bring you. Seeing that it was an ashtray, Ma Ili immediately picked it up with a smile and looked at it carefully. This is good. Luochio knows me well. Not long after, Ma Howd leaned on the table, approached, and whispered, Last time you said that little Luo Chio has a girlfriend. What does she look like? Ma Howd, when did you become such a busybody? Ren Xiling smiled and said, You've been very free recently, haven't you? Didn't you say you were going to work overtime like an old dog? Mahoud casually replied. That's a long time ago. The city's leaders are already very conscientious. They're not paralyzed at home and are still working. Are you really free these days? Rin Xiling suddenly asked. I don't have any materials for you. Mahoud knew all too well what this woman was thinking. The world has been peaceful recently. There are no strange cases except for some thieves. If you're interested, you can go out and find out more from them. Didn't you say that several people committed suicide? Didn't you say it was suicide? Mahoud was still fiddling with the ashtray and said, Old Sheen from the Forensic Science Department also said that it was indeed a suicide. Although it's a bit of a coincidence that they were all students, they didn't have any grudges. They were all recognized as good students, and they didn't study in the same school. But what? Rin Xiling's eyes lit up. Mahoud rolled his eyes. Can you not hide your recording pen? Did I promise you that I would let you record it? Sub-editor Rin smiled embarrassedly. Mahoud lit a cigarette and said, But they all attended a cram school. I heard it was opened recently. We learned about this cram school, and there's nothing wrong with it. It has a legitimate license, and the teachers are all very experienced retired teachers. Rin Xiling frowned and said, But don't you think it's strange that all the students in this cram school committed suicide? It's very strange. Mahoud nodded and said, The problem is that they did commit suicide. One of them was caught by the surveillance camera walking to the rooftop alone. The medical examiner and the examiner also came to the same conclusion. The case has been closed, and the family has taken the body back. What can I do? Besides, if all the students in this cram school commit suicide, they don't need to do business anymore. Mahoud shrugged and said, It's just that these kids are under too much pressure. Besides, many students commit suicide every day. It's impossible to count them. It's just that ordinary people don't know about it. Don't you know about it? Give me the address of the cram school. Rin Xiling suddenly spread out her hand. What do you want to do? We've closed the case. Don't make more trouble, okay? I'll let my grandson know about the market in advance. My grandson doesn't need to take the college entrance examination. In the future? Rin Xiling stared at him. Grandson. Mahoud gave a start. He slapped the table and jumped up. Little Luo Chio is so awesome. He made someone pregnant. Awesome. He has a child before marriage. He deserves to be Brother Luo's son. What are you talking about? I said advance. In advance. Rin Xiling sighed and muttered. I wish he had such good energy. You scared me. Looking at Rin Xiling, leaving the police station with the address of the cram school, Black Soul number 18 felt a little pressure. Was it really okay to listen to these two big shots casually discussing about the new master? When would this task end? Black Soul number 18 sighed and floated up. This woman drove too fast. She didn't know where she would go if she didn't pay attention. Black Soul number 18, stop. Miss Yu Yi. Black Soul number 18 hurriedly turned around. She didn't know when Miss Servant Girl of the club appeared behind her. The servant girl carried a shopping bag in her hand, which was filled with vegetables and meat. Why are you here? Miss Yu Yi. Number 18, get ready. Come back in 2 days to formally meet the new master. Yu Yi whispered. Black Soul number 18 was stunned. But don't I need to continue to protect Miss Rin? Miss Servant Girl said indifferently. The new master has opened the critical door. I have no way to hide you. Besides, the new master doesn't need you to do this job. The critical door has been opened? Black Soul number 18 was pleasantly surprised. No wonder I have an instinctive feeling of not wanting to get close to Miss Rin since yesterday. For the Black Soul envoys scattered all over the world, the activation of the critical gate greatly facilitated their work. When there were enough points that could summon the critical gate, it meant that each Black Soul envoy had their own territory, and they didn't all have to be in the same place, resulting in a situation where there were too many wolves and too little meat. As for the feeling of not wanting to get close to Miss Rin, it was probably the embodiment of the boss's will. This kind of will may be unintentional, but it was very obvious for the Black Soul envoys. Yes, but the new master hasn't officially opened his own point. Yu Yi said indifferently, if the master doesn't plan to do so, as servants, we shouldn't mention it. I see. Black Soul number 18 nodded helplessly. She knew that Miss Servant Girl was reminding her not to let the new master set the point in the area where she used to live. Since Miss Maid was born in the club 300 years ago, those unruly Black Soul envoys had long been buried by the grass on their graves. Take a rest these 2 days. Yi nodded. I have to go back to prepare dinner for the master. Take care, Miss Yi. In the club, Luocio habitually picked up the black tea cup and took a sip. Then he stopped. He found the taste of the tea was a bit wrong, so he raised his head subconsciously. He found that the one who brought the tea to him was not Yu Yi, but Qin Shuyu. Your servant went to buy vegetables and told me to add water for you at this time. Qin Shuyu said indifferently. There was nothing to be dissatisfied with, but there seemed to be something to be dissatisfied with. Are you used to living here? Luocio put down the teacup and asked indifferently. Qin Shuyu said, For me, it doesn't matter where I live. On the contrary, I can recover the loss of this life faster here. Luocio asked curiously, I heard from Tainzi that there are very few people who have cultivated the cultivation method in the white jade token in the past countless years. It was even lost from a generation after you. That is to say, you're the only one who succeeded in the past 500 years. What do you want to ask? Qin Shuyu said indifferently. Luocio smiled faintly. I'm just curious if there's anyone who succeeded before you, and then, like you now, they're living their lives in the same way as you. Aren't you omniscient? Qin Shuyu said indifferently. Why do you ask me? Boss Luo just smiled and didn't answer this question. He couldn't say that the information needed to be paid, but since I got it from you, I don't need to waste it such stingy words. Except for me, only 2 people succeeded in the cultivation of Huanjin Dao. One is my master, the other is the original grandmaster. Qin Shuyu suddenly said, I'm also looking for them. Luocio thought for a while and suddenly said, Since you want to find them, why don't you go through us? It's not necessary. After Qin Shuyu finished the task of serving tea and water, she returned to the corner of the hall and prepared to meditate. Before she closed her eyes, she said almost indifferently, This is also a part of cultivation. Finally, she closed her eyes and went into the world of her own thoughts. Looking at Qin Shuyu's meditating appearance, Luocio seemed to have seen something similar somewhere. That's right. He remembered the statue that hid the first gold and silver card he had obtained. He was also like that, forgetting everything. Boss Luo shook his head and continued to read the world atlas that he opened today. He didn't really understand the world of these cultivators. Then he should think about where the point should be set. Number 24, Gouging Road. Yes, here. After checking the address in her hand and finding the destination, Ren Xiling stopped the car. She looked around. There were office buildings nearby, and the farthest commercial street was 2 kilometers away. It was quiet in such a place where office buildings were concentrated. It seemed to be suitable for cram classes. The boss of this cram school is quite attentive. Ren Xiling looked around and prepared to go up to the cram school floor of this building. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, an anxious voice could be heard saying, Wait, please wait. Ren Xiling pressed the button to open the door and saw a pretty clean girl trotting in, about 10 years old. Yes, she was carrying a box of Talensu. Did she also come to the cram school? To be continued. Chapter 329. Which floor do you want to go to? Ren Xiling decided to test the little girl. On the Chinese website, the little girl was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly pulled out a neatly folded leaflet from her bag. Yes, it's here. Found it, 11th floor. 11th floor. Ren Xiling looked at the little girl's reaction. Are you going to sign up for this cram school? Yes. The little girl revealed a smile that made sub-editor Ren feel very bright. Sister Long asked me to sign up. Who knew what Sister Long was like? But Ren Xiling thought the little girl was probably the type who seldom went out. Was she a rare animal? How could she reveal her information so easily? Auntie, are you going to the cram school too? The little girl suddenly asked with her head tilted. Auntie, Ren Xiling approached the little girl without saying a word. Perhaps it was because of the pressure, the little girl subconsciously stepped back. She knew that her body was completely pressed against the side of the elevator, and there was no way to retreat. What's the matter? The little girl was a little flustered. Sister Long said, that she had cast a spell on her body. Not many people in this world would be able to see her true form, so she should be able to move around without worry. Look at me, yes. Look at my face. Rin Xiling squinted. Well, that's it. Tell me, which part of me looks like an Annie, ah? Wrinkles, wrinkles, dark circles, and pimples. The little girl swallowed her saliva and replied with cold sweat while protecting her trensu with one hand. Rin Xiling took a few steps back as if she was hit hard. She turned around, took out the makeup mirror box from the bag, and looked at it carefully. Oh my God! During Luo Chio's trip abroad, he had been working overtime and eating instant noodles every day. Although she knew that she had dark circles under her eyes, when did the crow's feet appear? Damn, when did the pimples come out? How could the little girl's eyes be so sharp? She clearly didn't notice it before she left the house. She only had 2 shallow lines. Ah, big sister, are you okay? The little girl looked strange and couldn't help but ask with concern. Nothing, I'm just... Rin Xiling looked at the floor indicator of the elevator at a 45-degree angle, as if she was standing on a mountain peak looking at the world, and said in a lonely voice, a little sad, Guisinyong. The little girl was stunned. As if she didn't know that she had just added insult to injury, she said innocently, Sister Long said that the people who read Guisinyong's books are all old. Don't let me see you again. When the elevator door opened, Rin Xiling rushed out of the elevator door and left in grief. However, Rin Xiling soon saw the girl at the front desk of the cram school. If you want to sign up, fill out this form first. This is yours. The receptionist handed the form to the little girl and then looked at Rin Xiling. Miss, are you here to sign up too? Why? Is there a problem? Sub-editor Ron, who was still suffering from the shock, couldn't bring herself to greet the girl with a smile. She glanced at the little girl beside the receptionist. The little girl clearly felt the murderous look from the receptionist. She lowered her head in a cold sweat, doubting whether the receptionist had seen through her identity. No. The receptionist was stunned for a while and then smiled politely. We also have a special cram school for the adult college entrance examination, so there's no problem at all. Can I know the teachers and teaching conditions here first? Rin Xiling asked casually. The receptionist smiled. Yes, of course. Therefore, she looked at the colleague next to her and ordered, Xiao Lu, show this lady around our classroom first. Rin Xiling followed another receptionist and left. The little girl finally felt the terrifying gaze leave. She sighed softly and took a sip of the Terensu that was produced last week to calm her nerves. Then she said, I've filled it out. Well, Luo Dance, what a nice name. The receptionist glanced at the little girl and smiled. Looking at the little girl's white skin, she couldn't help but sigh at the beauty of youth. Really? The little butterfly monster smiled happily and said casually, a very nice boss changed it for me. Although she didn't know why the name was changed by the boss instead of her family, the receptionist didn't ask too much and began to read the form carefully. Soon, she frowned and looked at Luo Dance, saying, Well, miss, can you sit over there for a while? Oh, okay. Seeing the smart little girl away, the receptionist picked up the phone and called the leader, manager. A guest has just come. But there's still some educational background in the information. It's written on the school's website. Home correspondence study. Do you think it's okay? Home correspondence study? Let's get her to do an academic test first. Okay. The receptionist nodded and then waved to Luo Dance. Miss Luo, please come with me first. You need to do a test first. Okay. However, Rin Xiling walked around inside and didn't find anything wrong with it. As Ma Hao said, most of the teachers here were old people who were hired after retirement. It was too abrupt to ask to see the cram school's boss. Sub-editor Run, who didn't want to reveal her identity as a reporter, soon lost interest. She followed the receptionist to the front desk and found that the little girl had disappeared. Miss, do you need anything else? Do you have any information, brochures, or something like that? I want to study it. Rin Xiling said casually. The receptionist nodded. No problem. Please wait a moment. Rin Xiling leaned on the front desk and felt bored. Suddenly, she glanced at the form that had just been filled in. Luo Dance? Did the father who changed this name watch too many period dramas? 18 years old. Rin Xiling suddenly narrowed her eyes. licked her lips, and smiled like a mischievous child. She quietly picked up the pen. Call me Annie. She added a small stroke on the 1, making it 78. Sub-editor Wren's spiritual victory had always been very powerful. Well, we will inform you when the test results are out. The receptionist saw that Luo Dance finished 3 test questions in 1.5 hours. She finished 1 test question in half an hour on average. By the way, this is the information that has just been filled in. Check it again. If there's no problem, you can wait for the notice. The receptionist glanced at the form. Hey, did you make a mistake here? 78. The receptionist smiled. It says 78 years old here. The little butterfly was stunned. She didn't remember that she had made a mistake. She had checked it several times because she was worried that she would give herself away. But 78 years was clearly all the time since she was born. Although she hadn't been a monster for a long time, counting the time when she was born, it was exactly 78 years. The little butterfly monster's nose twitched. She smelled the scent of that big sister on the form. Sure enough, she saw through me. What should I do? The little butterfly hurriedly filled in the form and quickly left the cram school. She seemed to have met someone before she went out. A boy about 17 or 18 years old lowered his head and seemed to have something on his mind. I'm sorry. Luo Dance quickly apologized and ran to a place where no one was, taking out the phone. Sister Long, someone found out my real identity. Well, I don't know about a girl. I can't feel any monster aura. Her eyes are so scary. She saw how old I am. What should I do? A girl? She saw through your age at a glance. On the other end of the phone, Long Shirua frowned. Some great demons with cultivation could basically see through the origin of a little demon. The problem was that it was difficult to pinpoint the age of a little demon. She couldn't do it under normal circumstances. What else did she say? The little butterfly thought for a while. Oh. She also said, don't let her see me again, or something. Long Shirua nodded. I see. You go first. After hanging up the phone, Long Shirua narrowed her eyes. How dare you threaten the girl under my protection? I like to see which immortal you are. Chapter 330. As soon as he entered the classroom, he heard some whispers. He quickly found his seat among the many seats and sat down. In front of him were students from different schools and wearing different school uniforms. Just like him, the people here did not participate in the school's evening self-study. Moreover, compared to the dozens of students who participated in the evening self-study class, facing a teacher who was perhaps still young, the parents of these students were more willing to let their children come here. That was what the parents of retired teachers who had been in the profession for decades thought. They were talking about the recent cases of falling off buildings because they heard that the victims were all students of this cram school, even though they were not in the same classroom. There were 15 to 20 students in a cram school. At present, there were 5 classes and a 6th class was under construction. The best conditions, the best teachers, and the first-hand test questions. Therefore, despite the exorbitant tuition fees, it still attracted many parents who flocked to the school. Well, get ready for class. Tonight, we will analyze the questions from Shandong province that we just took this year. Tidy up your mood, and don't let unnecessary things affect your mood. Remember, there are many single plank bridges in front of you. There are many bridges, but more people. There may be 100 or 200 people crowding at the bridgehead with you. Although the old man had retired, his temper didn't seem to be restrained much. Gu Jiajia looked at the students who had begun to write and look at the podium and hurriedly adjusted his mood. Among the teachers of this cram school, this old man was known as the god of blackface. But at this moment, his cell phone suddenly vibrated. Gu Jiajia glanced at the old teacher on the podium cautiously and quickly looked down at his cell phone. SMS. 9 o'clock, same place. I'm back. When the door was opened, Luochio saw Run Xiling walking in listlessly while tidying up the house. Sub-editor Rin glanced at the clean living room and showed an ugly smile. Then she sighed and slumped on the sofa, waving her hand. I was going to tidy up before you came back, but I forgot. Luochio was used to this woman's self-righteous laziness, so he didn't say anything. Instead, he poured a cup of warm water and put it in front of Rin Xiling. Thank you. Ren Xiling moaned and suddenly sat up straight, looking at Luochio. Boy, sit here. She patted the seat beside her. No. Ren Xiling gave a start and raised her eyebrows. She angrily pulled down Boss Luo's arm. Fuck, sit down. Look at me. What's up? Look at me. Ren Xiling patted her cheek. Look at my face. Be serious. Boy, I want to ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. But before sub-editor Run could ask the question, dark circles, 2 wrinkles, acne. Luochio said lightly, you probably want to ask these questions. In fact, it's nothing. Don't stay up late, don't eat instant noodles, and live a normal life. By the way, drink more warm water, don't drink soft drinks. Ren Xiling seemed to have received a devastating blow, saying pitifully, so, I really look like an Annie? Luochio turned on the TV and said while watching, what happened today? I tell you, today, I let a little girl call me Annie. God, I'm only 29 years old. It's time to call you Auntie. Brad, do you still want to be a family member? How can you hit me when I'm down like this? Ren Xiling said pitifully, you Luos only know how to bully me. Us. Luochio gave a start. That little girl's surname is also Luo. Ren Xiling hummed. Maybe you were a family 500 years ago. She's just a little younger, with better skin and cuter. What's the big deal? Luochio suddenly asked. What's her name? Luo. Luo what? Ren Xiling frowned and thought for a while. Oh, Luo Dance. Her father must have watched too many period dramas. Was that little butterfly still in this city? Luochio shook his head. We weren't a family 500 years ago. I'm just saying, why are you so serious? Ren Xiling patted Boss Luo's head. I'm going to take a bath and sleep. No. From today on, I'll go to bed early and get up early. Have you eaten? Luochio asked softly. No, I'm on a diet. Seeing Ren Xiling rushing into the bathroom, Luochio smiled and began to pack up the things brought back by this woman. Cram school? Just like that, a brochure fell to the ground. Luochio opened the brochure and read it carefully. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand, and the brochure flew out from his hand to the center of the living room. The brochure began to open and then began to project some translucent images of what had happened. Boss Luo looked at these images silently. When he saw sub-editor Ren licking her lips and drawing something with a pen, he smiled subconsciously. Andy, that's it. He shook his head and waved his hand. The images disappeared. Luochio stood up and packed up the rest of the things. He turned off the light in the living room and went back to the room, thinking about the little butterfly. This little butterfly was very studious and even attended cram school. He quietly fell asleep in his clothes. Early in the morning, a lot of people had gathered in the community. At this time, Ma Ili, who was eating a hamburger, pushed through the crowd and walked in. Clear the crowd and be careful not to destroy the scene. Is a forensic old Sheen here? Then who? See if there's the most troublesome record. Ma Howd suddenly stopped and looked around with a guilty conscience. The young police officer beside him quickly said, Ma Ili, your sister-in-law is not here. Ma Howd awkwardly cleared his throat and coughed twice, saying in a deep voice, Kick those annoying reporters out. What are you waiting for? Go. Yes. Ma Howd straightened his chest and walked to the block scene with his head held high. He hadn't shouted this sentence for a long time. It was even more satisfying than eating a bowl of sour plum sauce shaved ice. Ma Ili, you're here. The police officer who blocked the scene quickly saluted at this time. Tell me the situation. Ma Howd nodded and ordered casually. The police officer quickly said, the deceased should have fallen from a high altitude. As for the location, it needs to be checked. The body was found by the community's janitor, Annie. The identity of the deceased has been found. He is a resident of this building on the 12th floor. The deceased is a male, 18 years old, named Gu Jiajia, a fresh graduate of number 3 high school in the city. Why is he a student again? Ma Howd was stunned. He deeply frowned and glanced at the scene. On the stone bench not far away, a couple in pajamas hugged each other and cried bitterly. Who are they to the deceased? Oh, they're the parents of the deceased. The police officer opened the small book. The man is Gu Feng. The woman is Shun Mei Huan. Chapter 331. Mahoud gave some tissues to Shen Mei Huan and then looked at Gu Feng, who was barely able to keep calm. Hello, Mr. Gu, I'm Mahoud. Do you mind if I ask you something? Go ahead. Gu Feng took a deep breath and answered reluctantly. Mahoud nodded. When was the last time you saw Gu Jiajia? Gu Feng thought for a while and said in a hoarse voice, Last night, about 11:30. I chatted with him before going to bed, but I didn't expect. Does your son have any enemies recently? Or is he behaving strangely? Mahoud had to pretend that he didn't see his son's expression and continued asking. Gu Feng shook his head and said, My son is very sensible and never causes trouble outside. He is also very filial. Recently, there is nothing unusual about him. Did you give your son a phone? Mahoud continued to ask. Yes, I did. Gu Feng quickly said, It's the latest model. I gave it to him during the summer vacation because he did well in the exam last semester. I went with him to buy it. Well, Mr. Gu, we can't confirm the cause of your son's death yet. Mahoud said slowly, but I want to take your son's phone back and have a look. And we'll also go to your son's room. Also, I have to remind you that the forensic doctor may dissect your son's body, if necessary. I hope you can cooperate with him. What? Dissect my son's body? Hearing this, Shen Mei Huan cried sadly. My son is like this, and you still want to dissect his body. Mahoud had to say, Madam, don't you want to know whether your son committed suicide or something else happened to him? Shen Mei Huan suddenly had no idea. She could only lean on her husband's chest and cry bitterly. Mahoud shook his head. He knew that he couldn't get anything out of the couple for the time being. He walked aside impatiently and lit a cigarette, waiting for the certificate holder. At this time, a figure came into his sight. A slightly thin figure walked away from the crowd with a hat on his head. Mahoud subconsciously wanted to go up, but he heard a policeman's voice. Mahoud, the certificate holder is coming. Oh, okay, I'll be right there. Mahoud had already lost sight of the figure, but there were still many onlookers in front of him. Officer Ma was immediately dissatisfied. Didn't I ask you to evacuate the onlookers? Where is he? 2 steamed buns, 1 for home and 1 for takeout. Okay. In front of the bun shop, the boss, who was kneading dough with his head down, answered casually. But soon he raised his head. When he saw the customer, he smiled in surprise. Luo Chio, it's you. Long time no. Come, sit inside. Do your business. Brother Chun had taken over the bun shop for some time, since his parents left. Luochio glanced at old Chen's son, who seemed to be more skillful with his hands, smiled, and walked into the bun shop. It seemed that the shop had regained some popularity compared to when old Chun had just left. Long time no see. Why are you back today? Old Chen's son put a towel on his shoulder, wiped his sweat, and sat opposite Luochio. I suddenly remembered, so I came. By the way, I went back to the old house to clean it. Luochio said softly. How have you been recently? Alas. Old Chen's son smiled and replied, Same as always. But I'm probably more comfortable than before. Old Chen's son made tea and said slowly, People think they're not used to it first, but in fact they just can't accept it. But if they accept it, it's not bad. It's not bad to change the way of life. He looked at the old neighbors who had already accepted the taste of his bun, smiled and said, Recently, I began to understand some things. My dad has been insisting on staying here. I think he has his own reasons. Old Chen's son's eyes gradually became gentle. His smile was very nice, just like the taste of the bun shop's bun. Human touch. It tastes good. Luochio opened a fresh bun, tasted it, and praised. Old Chen's son smiled honestly. That's good. I was afraid that you would say it didn't taste good. You're so scary when you're not smiling, just like a little old man. I don't know when you'll say something scary, and you're so serious. Luochio sighed and didn't say anything. At this time, another customer came to the bun shop. She stood in front of the shop and whispered something. Old Chen's son glanced at Luochio. This little girl is here again. Luochio turned his head and saw a woman wearing a mask and a hat. Little girl? Her voice doesn't sound loud. Old Chen's son nodded. It should be a little girl. In the last 1 or 2 months, she came back once every 1 or 2 days. Every time, she would buy a lot of buns. Old Chen's son shrugged, but she rarely talks. Every time she pays, she takes the things and leaves. Huh, She left again. This time, she seems to be in a hurry. After the little girl paid the bill, she lowered her head and hurriedly left. No one knew what she looked like. Boss, leave the buns here first. I'll come back to get them later. Luaccio suddenly stood up and said, Okay. In an alley in the old town, the little girl carrying a big bag of buns stuck close to the exit of the alley. She cautiously poked her head out and looked at the way she came. She seemed to be relieved. She patted her chest and turned around. She pulled down her mask and took a whiff of the buns in the bag. She smiled. Does it smell good? Yes. The little girl answered without thinking, but she soon realized that something was wrong. Who was asking her? She abruptly turned around and saw the person who had appeared behind her without anyone noticing. She was very frightened and let out a soft cry of ah. Do I look scary? Luaccio looked at the little girl in front of him. It was Butterfly Monster Luo Dance. No. Butterfly Monster lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Boss Luo. Luaccio smiled. When did you change to eating buns? You didn't eat them before. Luo Dance raised her head and blinked. It's not for me. It's for Little Black and the others. Little Black? Yes. The so-called Little Black and the others didn't refer to anyone, but a group of stray cats. In the courtyard of an abandoned house in a corner of the old town, the little butterfly monster was squatting on the ground. She peeled the buns in the bag and fed them to the stray cats that popped out from the bushes all over the courtyard. Looking at the kitten licking the butterfly monster's finger and making her smile, Luo suddenly felt a little more comfortable. Give me a bun. He squatted down and said softly. They fed the cats like this. Chapter 332. This is Little Black, this is Little White, this is a flower, and this is cotton candy. This is honey, this is milk, and this. Listening to the little butterfly introducing the names of these stray cats as if they were family treasures, Boss Luo suddenly felt something was wrong. Chinese network, the first names were fine, but why did the latter names become strange? Did they reveal something? They seem to like you very much. Luo Dance blinked. Looking at these stray cats she had been feeding for a long time, she found that even if she was here, they would be closer to the club boss, a stranger. Do you often come to the bun shop to patronize the shop's business? Luaccio picked up a stray cat and asked. Because the shop's business doesn't seem to be very good, the little butterfly said gloomily, but she soon cheered up. But the business is getting better recently. Had he been working recently? Thinking of this little butterfly as a monster was so hungry that she had to wander the streets. It seemed that she would not use her monster power casually. It was easy to imagine where her money came from. Yes, the little butterfly nodded. I met a nice sister some time ago. She took me in and let me work in her shop. But, without her permission, I can't tell you her name. It's okay. Luaccio smiled, but then he heard the sound of stomach rumbling. This little butterfly demon had been in the society for some time and had probably learned a lot. Her ears turned red on the spot. She lowered her head in embarrassment, touched her stomach, and smiled awkwardly. Drink. The little butterfly looked at the bottle of honey in Boss Luo's hand in surprise, blinking her eyes. I bought it when I just came out. Luaccio opened the bottle cap. It should be the same brand as last time. I think you can drink it. Little Butterfly suddenly remembered that the boss also gave her a bottle of honey last time, but she was too hungry and rushed to drink it. She directly bit the bottle open, and her face couldn't help but turn redder. But he couldn't resist the fragrance of the honey when the lid was opened. Thus, the little butterfly took the bottle and blew into it. After a while, the entire bottle was emptied. She licked her lips in satisfaction. Sister Long said, not to let me drink too much honey. She said something like going too far is as bad as not going far enough. I've only been drinking milk recently. Sister Long? Boss Luo couldn't help but smile. Only then did she realize that she seemed to have accidentally said something. The little butterfly immediately covered her mouth and said pitifully, You didn't hear anything, okay? I think I know who this Sister Long you're talking about is. Luaccio gently shook his head. Don't mind it. The little butterfly nodded, not fully understanding. So be it. Luaccio greeted her. Originally, he only wanted to see how the little butterfly was doing on a whim. Now that he understood, He didn't want to continue disturbing her life. Wait. Money. No need. Looking at the back of Luaccio, slowly leaving the deserted yard, the little butterfly suddenly shouted, "Boss, will we meet again?" She didn't know why she asked this, but apparently, she got the answer. "Don't you know where I am?" Luaccio whispered. "If you want to find me, you can come here at any time." Seeing him disappear, the little butterfly lowered her head and glanced at the empty bottle in her hand. She thought for a while, suddenly screwed the bottle cap and put it into her bag. Luo danced, squatted down again, and touched the stray cats. She said softly, "I tell you, this boss is actually a good person." Suddenly, the little butterfly's cell phone rang. "Excuse me, is this Miss Luo? We're from Chaoyang Cram School. Your application has been approved. If it's convenient, please come here in a day or two to pay the tuition fee and get the materials. Then you can start classes." Oh, okay. It seemed that every time she met this boss, something good would happen to her. The little butterfly smiled, and even the wind calmed down. Just like that, 2 days passed. Shen Meihuan sat alone in her son's room. She didn't speak or eat for a whole day. Her husband, Gu Feng, came in with a bowl of porridge and said softly, "Eat something." I can't eat." Shen Meihuan looked at her son's photo for a whole day. On the glass of the photo frame, there were drops of tears. Some were dry, some were wet, and some seemed to have just dropped. Gu Feng sighed and sat down. He put his arm around his wife's shoulder and closed his eyes, saying in a hoarse voice, "Jiajia can't bear to see you like this." "He can't bear to see me like this?" Shen Meihuan turned on the switch and sobbed. No, he can't bear to see me like this. Tell me, did I do something wrong?" Her husband was speechless and could only sigh. Shen Meihuan cried, "Gu Feng, did we push our son too hard? Did we do anything wrong?" "I don't know," Gu Feng said sadly. "Maybe I didn't really take responsibility as a father. We never understood Jiajia's real thoughts." It's me. Shen Meihuan suddenly stood up and beat her chest vigorously. She said sadly, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't push him. I shouldn't be so strict to him. I thought it was good for him. It's me. Seeing that his wife couldn't control herself and was knocking her head against the wall, Gu Feng was shocked. He hugged her from behind and shouted, "Calm down. Is it useful to do this? Are you planning to leave me alone in the end?" Shen Meihuan suddenly stopped. She covered her face with her hands and sat down, crying, "How will Gu Feng live in the future? I don't know how." Gu Feng let out a long sigh. All of a sudden, there were only 2 people left in this house. It was cold and cheerless. How were they going to spend the next few days? "It's suicide." Ma Ili was stunned. He looked at the autopsy report brought by Old Qin from the forensic department and frowned. "Old Qin, is it confirmed?" Old Qin said indifferently, "Living people can lie, but corpses can't. Unless you think I'm wrong." "That's not what I meant." Mahoud laughed awkwardly and then said seriously, "But, including this one, this is the 5th one. All of them are suicides. Don't you think it's really King weird?" Old Qin was silent for a while, and then said coldly, "I have to go back to work. My work is finished after the autopsy. Forensic doctors can only judge the physical condition of the deceased, but we can't make a conclusion about the mental condition of the deceased." "Mental condition?" Mahoud was stunned. Old Qin said indifferently, "Although it's not a fatal wound, there are many scars in different shapes on the deceased's body. Some of them were even caused by sharp weapons. If the child was just an ordinary student, he wouldn't have so many old scars." "You mean," Mahoud nodded, "domestic violence? That's your job." Mahoud couldn't help but frown as he watched this guy leave his office. Mahoud couldn't help murmuring, "Damn it." Of course, there was something even worse. The 5 victims, including Gu Jiajia, were all students of Chaoyang Cram School. After smoking one cigarette after another, Mahoud finally filled a new ashtray with ash. Then, he resolutely picked up the phone. "Hello, Laolu." "Mahoud, how can you talk to your boss like this? I don't want to talk to you about this." Mahoud hurriedly said, "Director, I want to open a case and investigate the suicide cases. Do you have any evidence?" "The 5th victim. What else do you want?" "All right, Chapter 333. After pressing the doorbell, Ma Haod saw that it was Gu Feng who opened the door. Gu Feng. Obviously, Gu Feng was surprised to see Officer Ma. Officer Ma, what's up? Oh, nothing. I just have a few small questions that I want to ask. Is it convenient for you? Ma Haod smiled. Gu Feng nodded and let Ma Haod in. As soon as they sat down, Gu Feng said, "My wife just fell asleep. Let's keep our voices down." Ma Haod nodded. "How is your wife?" Gu Feng smiled bitterly. "How is she? I haven't eaten or slept for the past few days. It wasn't easy for me to finally fall asleep because my body was so tired that I collapsed from exhaustion. My condolences." Gu Feng pinched his eyebrows, looking tired. "Officer Ma, you said you wanted to ask me something. What is it? By the way, when can my son's body be brought here?" Ma Haod said coldly, "Mr. Gu, it seems that you are in a hurry to bring Gu Jiajia's body here." Gu Feng was stunned. He frowned and said, "Officer Ma, I don't understand what you mean by that. I can't let my son lie in that cold place all the time. The medical examiner's report is here," Ma Haod said calmly. "Combined with the traces we collected on the rooftop of your building, the conclusion is that your son committed suicide." Gu Feng sighed and said nothing. Ma Haod continued, "But we found a lot of scars on your son's body. Some of them were bruises, old and new. Some were even caused by sharp weapons. Do you know anything about them?" Gu Feng paused and asked in surprise, "What happened? Why are there wounds on my son's body?" "That's why I'm here to ask you, Mr. Gu." Ma Haod said indifferently, "Your son doesn't live on campus. Didn't you find any scars on his body?" Gu Feng shook his head. "I really don't know. Perhaps he fought with someone outside without telling us, but he didn't dare to tell us. Now it seems that this son of mine is indeed hiding a lot of things from us. Why would he commit suicide? I'm afraid we never had a good idea of what he was thinking." Ma Haod said indifferently, "Mr. Gu, you're still so calm even though your son just got into trouble. You're really strong." Gu Feng sighed and said, "Life still has to go on. Now that my wife is like this, if I continue to be passive, this family will fall apart." Ma Haod suddenly sneered and said, "Even if this family falls apart, doesn't Mr. Gu still have another family?" Gu Feng was stunned. He turned his head and said, "Officer Ma, what do you mean?" Ma Haod originally wanted to snort coldly, but thinking that there was still a painful mother sleeping in the room, he lowered his voice and said, "You still have a mistress outside. Moreover, she just gave birth to a son for you. He's not even 3 years old, right? You." Gu Feng widened his eyes and said angrily, Ma Haod said, "Mr. Gu, now the citizen's information is very complete. It won't take a long time to find out what you want. Your identity is written in the father's certificate of your youngest son's birth. It's very easy to find out in our system. Keep your voice down. My wife doesn't know about this." Gu Feng looked nervous and looked at the door of the room with a guilty conscience. "Officer Ma, even if I have another woman outside, it's nothing. We're all men. First, it's not a big deal to make a mistake." Ma Haod sneered and said, "Gu Jiajia is not your biological son. He's the child of your current wife after she remarried. For so many years, she didn't give birth to another child for you. So you found another woman to give birth to your child, right?" "Officer Ma." Gu Feng was also angry and said in a low voice, "This is my personal business. It's my family business. Do you police even care about this?" "What? Even if it's a civil case, shouldn't it be under the police's jurisdiction?" Ma Haod said indifferently. "And what if it's not a civil case, but a criminal case?" "I don't understand what you're talking about." Gu Feng snorted. Ma Haod said in a low voice, "Gu Feng, now I suspect that you have a habit of abusing Gu Jiajia, which led to his mental instability and suicide. So I want to ask you to assist in the investigation." "You." Gu Feng stood up and said angrily, "You're slandering me." Ma Haod said indifferently, "Mr. Gu Feng, now the identification technology is very advanced. Even if we find a knife that matches your son's wound, we have reason to believe that there's domestic violence here. Of course, if you need a search warrant, I can give it to you right away." "Don't." Gu Feng panicked. "Officer Ma, what do you want to do? I just want to hear the truth." Ma Haod stared at him. He was used to interrogating criminals. His eyes were like the immovable wisdom king, which was very scary, the truth. Gu Feng was in a cold sweat and lowered his head. I admit that I did beat him, but I really don't know why he committed suicide. You don't suspect me, do you? Tell me, why did you beat him? Gu Feng sighed. Officer Ma, he's not my biological son. I have a lot of work pressure, and sometimes I can't control myself. But I promise, I didn't beat him too much. I just beat him a few times, and he would stop soon. I also blame myself, so I bought a lot of things for him. A few times? You've already used a knife, and you still want to be gentle? Ma Hao sneered. Gu Feng was frightened. It was just an accident. I didn't expect that he would suddenly contradict me. I was so angry that I beat him. Fortunately, it's just a small injury. Fortunately, it's just a small injury? Ma Hao was angry. You beat a child with a knife? How dare you say it's just a small injury? If he's not your biological son, then isn't he your son? You scumbag. Officer Ma, I can sue you for what you just said. Gu Feng narrowed his eyes. Suit yourself. Ma Hao snorted. Didn't I fill my desk with complaints that day? Mr. Gu Feng, since you admit that you have the habit of abusing your son, please come with me now. We suspect that your son committed suicide because of your long-term domestic violence. Suddenly, there was a sound of a cup falling on the ground. Shen Meihuan woke up and stood in front of the door like a wooden chicken. Meihuan. Gu Feng was frightened. Shen Meihuan hesitated and asked, Is what you said true? Gu Feng hurriedly said, Meihuan, listen to me. It's not what you think. Don't listen to this policeman. I heard it. Shen Meihuan rushed over. I heard it. You bastard. What did you do to my son? You bastard. Bastard. Give me back my son. Give me back my son. Bastard. Bastard. Seeing that Shen Meihuan kept beating him, Gu Feng suddenly pushed her away. He gasped and looked at his scratched arm, saying fiercely, Are you crazy? So what if I beat him? Can't I beat him as his father? All these years, who was the one who raised you? Whatever you want, I will give it to you. I'm also the one who got you this job. If it weren't for me, you would still be a farmer in the countryside. But you, after so many years, you still haven't laid an egg for me. Do you have the responsibility of being a wife? Ma Hao didn't want to see this kind of family affairs. He grabbed Gu Feng's arm and said calmly, Mr. Gu, please go there now. Don't pull me. Gu Feng glared at him. Humph, I can walk by myself. Mind your own business. After a long time, Shen Meihuan moved. She didn't remember when Gu Feng was taken away. She just sat there for a long time as if she had lost her soul. Suddenly, she seemed to have heard a noise outside the door. She rushed to the door and opened it. Jiajie, you're here. But there was no one outside. Jiajie, where are you? Shen Meihuan walked out of the house in a daze. She walked downstairs and looked at the community. She always felt that her son was still somewhere, but he didn't come to her. Walking out of the house barefoot, Shen Meihuan walked alone on the street. As she walked, she seemed to have walked into a place that was very quiet and cool. Then, there was a guy wearing a clown mask. It was a very strange place. Miss, what do you want? Anything is okay. Shen Meihuan was absent-minded and said subconsciously, Son, give my dead son back to me. Get back to me. Miss, the price of resurrecting the dead is too high. Do you really need it? The man asked calmly. Moreover, even if you can resurrect him, he may not be the son you know. No matter what, I'll give it all. As long as my dead son can come back. As long as he can come back. As you wish. The man said softly. Jiajie. Shen Meihuan suddenly woke up. The moment she woke up, she found that she was still in the living room of her own home, as if it was just a dream. Shen Meihuan smiled bitterly. Maybe it was just an illusion because she missed her son too much. Once again, she walked into her son's room. Thinking about how she was going to spend her days in the future, she couldn't help but burst into tears. But the moment she opened the door, she was stunned. She saw her son sitting on the edge of the bed. His eyes were open, and he was not moving at all. Yes, he was sitting there. His eyes could blink. Everyone was alive. It's true. Shen Meihuan rushed to her son's side and hugged him tightly. But she found that his body was cold. He couldn't speak. To be continued. Chapter 334. Even if he is resurrected, he may not be the son you know. Shen Meihuan began to understand the meaning of this sentence. She couldn't hear her son's heartbeat from his chest, but he could walk. His body was cold, but his muscles were as soft as ordinary people. He didn't speak, but responded to others' words. He didn't know how to think, and his behavior seemed to be instinctive. The living dead. Shin Mei Huan didn't know when this terrible idea came into her mind. But no matter what, you are my son. Shin Mei Huan held her son's face with both hands and whispered, "You are my flesh and blood, no matter what you become." His son's eyes suddenly blinked. He seemed to understand, but also seemed to not understand. Perhaps it was just a biological reaction. But Shin Mei Huan felt that her son was talking to her. He just didn't adapt to this state for a while. It must be so. Shin Mei Huan said softly. He must have hit his head when he fell down. It must be so. Don't be afraid, my child. I'm here, ah. Are you hungry? Look at you, you're so dirty. Do you want to drink water? She felt that she was back to the time when her son was very young, and she had to worry about his daily life. Shin Mei Huan held her son in her arms and lay on the bed. She gently stroked his head and said, "Sleep, sleep." Suddenly, Shin Mei Huan heard some sounds. The sound of the door opening. Her husband, Gu Feng, came back. Shin Mei Huan suddenly sat up, hugged her son tightly, and said nervously, "Don't be afraid. Mom is here. Don't be afraid. I won't let this guy hit you again, no." Gu Feng closed the door, changed his shoes, glanced at the living room, and finally sat down. After a while, Gu Feng shouted, "I'm back." He was very upset. It was not enough to describe his mood. It took him a lot of effort to get out of the police station after pulling a lot of strings. Gu Feng also asked the lawyer, and even if he was really prosecuted, he could still fight a lawsuit. This news was the only thing that made him feel slightly more at ease. However, there was another thing that he had to do with his current wife. When he married Shin Mei Huan, he was just a nobody in the city. Although this woman had brought a son into the family, she had also brought him some luck. In recent years, he had also contracted a small factory, and his living conditions had improved a lot. Naturally, his work had also become busier. More importantly, Shin Mei Huan also had a share in the factory. "Mei Huan, are you there? Mei Huan?" Gu Feng pinched his forehead and looked tired. "Can we talk about it? I admit that I did hit Jia Jia, but I was wrong. However, I really didn't expect him to be like this. Tell me, which child hasn't been beaten before? When I was young, wasn't I also beaten up by my father? I think both of us are at fault. I hit him, but you didn't take good care of your son either, right? Beautiful? Beautiful? Are you listening?" Suddenly, a sharp pain appeared at the back of Gu Feng's head. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and then the world spun, and then he lost consciousness. He directly laid down on the sofa. Behind him, Shin Mei Huan was holding a rolling pin in both hands. "I won't let you hit my son again." Shin Mei Huan suddenly woke up and threw away the rolling pin in her hand. She knew that Gu Feng was just in a coma, and she didn't really want to do the most extreme thing. Shin Mei Huan suddenly rushed into the room, packed up her things, and then took her son out of the house. She couldn't let others know that her dead son was alive again. She thought that she needed to hide her son for the time being. "Ma-yi, is it appropriate to let Gu Feng go?" the young policeman asked. Ma Howd, who was in a bad mood, stared at his subordinate. "What do you think? I just scared him. Do you really think that we should detain him like this? Even if we know that Gu Feng hit him, what can we do? This is a criminal self-report case. But where is the victim? He is still lying in Old Chin's house. Do you want him to stand up and report the case?" It's really annoying. The young policeman couldn't help but hit his right palm with his left fist. Ma Howd frowned. Besides, even if Gu Jiajia chose this extreme way because of domestic violence, there's still one thing that I can't let go of. Ma-yi, you mean the cram school? 5 suicides. All of them were students of this cram school. Ma Howd nodded. We didn't notice the first one at the beginning. Then the second one also committed suicide, then the third one, the fourth one, and now. At this time, another subordinate came in with a file. Ma-yi, the deleted message on Gu Jiaji's mobile phone has been recovered by the technician. There is a message sent by the victim before he committed suicide, but it was sent by a chat software. This kind of software is casually registered. We have asked the operator, but there is no information. Ma Howd quickly took it and glanced at it. 9 o'clock. The usual place? Teacher? Thinking about it, Mahoud suddenly stared at his subordinate, saying abruptly, "Do you still remember the mathematics, physics, and chemistry in high school?" What? The young police officer suddenly had a bad premonition. "Hey, you go to class." "What? Do you think I am suitable?" "You are not suitable, but am I suitable?" Mahoud rolled his eyes. The servant girl took out a globe from the utility room. At this moment, the club boss was rotating the globe. On the map of the globe, there were dense red dots. Of course, these red dots could only be seen by Luaccio himself. He could only know how many points she knew by the places where the customers came from. But Luaccio was different. As long as he was close to the critical gate and stayed on it, he could clearly know which points had been opened. He rotated slowly, as if he didn't want to stop. Master, Shen Mei Huan took her son away and knocked her husband out before leaving. It is difficult for the society to accept a dead person appearing again. Luo Chio said slowly. It's normal that she doesn't want others to know about it. It's also predictable. Luochio couldn't help but recall this transaction. This woman's wish was so strong that she didn't need any consultation at all. Luochio didn't even say anything, and the transaction was completed. He shook his head and patted the globe with his palm, stopping the spinning sphere. At this moment, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew open the door of the club, accompanied by a cloud of black smoke. The smoke finally formed in front of Luochio, and he heard a slightly hoarse and gloomy woman's voice. Black Soul 18 greets the new master. Are you the Black Soul envoy that Yu Yi said didn't dare to come because of some things? Luochio nodded and began to look at the old staff of the club. Black Soul number 18 took off the hood of her hoodie, revealing a rather frightening appearance. She had an aged face, a big nose that resembled a hook, and silver gray but sparse hair that resembled weeds. She looked just like an old witch in a fairy tale. Yes, I am. Black Soul 18 made a gloomy laugh. Boss Luo had seen different forms of things recently, so he wasn't too surprised by Black Soul 18's appearance. He just nodded. You've seen me before. Work as you used to. Black Soul number 18 nodded respectfully. She began to look around and found that there was not only the club girl she knew, but also another strange woman. She shouldn't be the Black Soul envoy. This is Miss Qin. She will live here temporarily. I see. She intended to nod to Qin Shuyu, but found that Qin Shuyu didn't even open her eyes. She had some thoughts in her mind, but she didn't show it. Instead, she curiously stared at the other one. How should she describe it? A guy who was hanging on the ceiling in a rather delicate posture. This is Tei Yinzi. He doesn't have a number now. Luochio said casually. Well, as you saw, he has some special hobbies. Black Soul number 18 nodded. She just remembered that he had some special hobbies. Anyway, she knew what the so-called special hobbies were from his appearance. Tianzi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, now slightly raised his head, looking at the servant girl whose face was as delicate as jade, and then lowered his head again. Really, it's not like this. Tianzi didn't have the thought of embarking on a prosperous Black Soul life. Now he just felt that his Black Soul life was full of stains. But the communication between Black Souls was very little. In the past, one Black Soul was in charge of one area, so there was very little time for communication. Black Soul 18 just knew him, but didn't want to pay attention to him. Instead, she stepped forward, turning over her palm, and several white cards appeared. Master, this is the information about the potential customer that I collected during this period. These were originally collected by her to congratulate the appearance of her new master. But before she had time to present them, Yi assigned another task, so she didn't present them. Now that there was a chance, she would present it at once, striving for a good opportunity to perform well. After all, the location of the new critical door hadn't been decided yet. Although the servant girl said that as a servant, she shouldn't take the initiative to mention it, but as a servant, she should strive to show her seriousness in her work in front of her master. To be continued. Chapter 335. Luo Chio put the information of Black Soul number 18 casually on the table after receiving it. Black Soul 18 didn't show a disappointed look. She just waited for the order quietly. She didn't plan to do anything before she figured out the new master's mood. Although all the staff in the club had the same loyalty to the boss, the Black Soul Envoys and Miss Servant Girl were not the same. If one had to name it, there was a hierarchy in the club that was not officially stated, but was abnormally strict. The one with the highest authority was naturally the club's owner. And there were many things worth pondering about. Anything else? Luochio asked softly. No, nothing else. Black Soul, 18, answered subconsciously. Then she looked at the new master confusedly. But, master, I should just put the information here. Luochio said indifferently. I'll take action when it's appropriate. You will remember your performance. Well, he looked at Black Soul 18 again and smiled. If you want to go back to your previous place, you can go back. If you want to have a rest, you can wander around as you like. This, Black Soul 18 couldn't figure out the new master's meaning. Wasn't he too lenient? Master means you can act as you like. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently. Black Soul 18, have you forgotten the autonomy the club gave you after so many years? That's not what I mean. Black Soul number 18 quickly lowered her head. She deliberated over her words and said, then I'll wander around nearby. I won't relax myself. I'll remember my duty. If there's a suitable boss, I'll present it to him at once. After that, Black Soul number 18 stepped back slowly, facing the boss of the club. She walked away step by step until she reached the gate of the club. Then she turned around and left. Looking at this scene, Luochio thought for a while and suddenly asked, are there more Black Soul envoys like this? Before Black Soul 18 was transformed, she was a witch in the Middle Ages. The servant girl knew what her master was wondering about, so she answered softly, some habits have been preserved since then. Luochio smiled and stretched. If that's the case, I think if I was in the Middle Ages, I would probably be the most incompetent monarch. I once heard from the former boss that it took him 100 years to open the critical door. The servant girl said indifferently, but the master only took less than 5 months. Probably luck. Luochio shook his head. He grabbed the information on the table and went upstairs. Miss Maid also continued her daily work. Qin Shiyu was still meditating. She didn't say anything and had forgotten everything. Me. Did no one think of putting me down? Oh, right. Tianzi was still shaking his body, hoping that someone would respond to his request. In the end, he still went on his own. Did he indulge these little bastards too much? Mahoud squinted his eyes and stared at the big recruitment sign of Chuyang Cram School. He threw away the cigarette, but in his mouth, and stamped it out. He took a deep breath and went up the building where the cram school was located, looking like a solemn and stirring wind blowing in his face. Today, Ma Yizhong learned from another good brother. He wore a khaki-colored windbreaker and a hat of the same color. You have a cram school for adults, right? Mahoud looked back sneakily at the front desk. Then he turned around and said, I saw on the billboard downstairs. Sir, the receptionist looked at this uncle in surprise. She seemed to think of something and smiled. Sir, you want to enroll in the cram school for adults, right? Sure. Keep your voice down. Mahoud made a gesture of silence. Sir, it's better for you to relax. The receptionist still smiled. Sir, it's amazing that you are still working hard for the adult college entrance exam at your age. I'm starting to admire you. You must be a very great person. Am I? Mahoud cleared his throat. He felt that girls were good at talking. So he slightly closed his beer belly and straightened his chest. Yes, many people say that about me. Of course. The receptionist was so charming that Mahoud paid the tuition fee. When he came back to his senses, he was already sitting in one of the classrooms of the cram school. Damn it, Mahoud looked around at the guys sitting in front of him. Some of them were in their 20s, while some were in their 30s. He did see some who were about his age. Ma Yizhong casually flipped through the information that was sent to him. In less than 3 minutes, he had already flipped through a book. Who the hell knew what he was reading? X-axis? Y-axis? Z-axis? Just as Ma Ili was stupefied and listening to the old man on the podium, he suddenly felt something poke him in the back. Who is it? Mahoud, who was used to the rough voice, turned around impatiently and saw a woman wearing a headscarf and sunglasses. He was stunned and said, You are. The other party lowered his glasses slightly and winked at him. At this moment, the private police officer couldn't hold onto his textbook and almost dropped it on the ground. He almost jumped up on the spot. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. But at this moment, the woman in the back seat covered his mouth and gestured for him to keep quiet. She lowered her voice and said, "Sweep your head. Keep your voice down." Mahoud opened his eyes wide and nodded. Why is Rin Xiling here? What the hell is she doing here? He looked back at the old man on the podium and sat up straight. However, he leaned back and covered his mouth with his textbook. When did you get here? Why didn't I see you? When did I come? Of course, I came earlier than you. You can't see? Isn't it because an old bastard like you was coaxed by the receptionist's little sister and sat down without even knowing your own name? I'm observing, investigating. Do you understand? Don't talk nonsense. Wait, why are you here? Then why are you here? Be honest. Sister-in-law, did you find something? Mahoud sighed. Who was the woman in the back seat? She was his sister-in-law, the cancer of the industry. Rin Xiling being here seemed to be out of his expectation. But thinking about it, it seemed to suit her personality. As for the reason, Mahoud already knew. I've been here for 2 days, and I didn't find anything. Damn it. The tuition fee of this cram school is ripping me off. Rin Xiling shook her head. My tuition fee will be reimbursed by the informant fee. Otherwise, I'll have to eat dirt this month. You know what? It doesn't matter if I'm hungry, but can you bear to let my baby son be hungry? I'm the only one making money to support the family. Brother Ma, I've never seen such a shameless person like you. So the old man on the podium patted the ruler in his hand and said in a deep voice, the bearded man in the yellow windbreaker, be quiet. Don't you know what a classroom discipline is? Mahoud couldn't help but think of the dark and humiliating history of being ruled by the teacher for decades. Smoke less. Although the cram school was over, Mahoud and Rin Xiling didn't leave. Instead, they came to the rooftop of this building. Mahoud tried to persuade them, but it seemed to be useless. He was also addicted to smoking, so he simply lit one. How about exchanging information? Rin Xiling suddenly said, You go first. Mahoud rolled his eyes and said, We found from the mobile phone of the 5th victim that he had an appointment with someone here before the accident. He called that person a teacher. I suspect that person is the teacher of this cram school. What a coincidence. Rin Xiling was stunned. I also chatted up 2 hotheads and heard that there was a very mysterious teacher. Chatted up? Don't mind the details. Rin Xiling blinked. Don't you think I'm very charming? Sister Long, this is the big sister I met the other day. Chapter 336. Luocio put the information of Black Soul number 18 casually on the table after receiving it. Black Soul number 18 didn't show a disappointed look, but waited for the order quietly. She didn't intend to do anything before she figured out the new master's mood. Although the loyalty of all the club's employees to the boss was the same, the way of loyalty between Black Soul Envoy and Miss Servant Girl was different. If one had to say, there was a hierarchy in the club that had never been officially stated, but it was extremely strict. The boss of the club was the supreme one, and below, there were many things worth pondering. Is there anything else? Luocio asked softly. No. Black Soul number 18 answered subconsciously, and then looked at the new master confusedly. But master, now, I should just put the information here. Luocio said indifferently. I'll take action when it's appropriate. You will keep your performance in mind. Well, he looked at Black Soul number 18 again and smiled. If you want to go back to your previous place, you can go back. If you want to have a rest, you can wander around as you like. This, Black Soul number 18, was more confused about the new master's meaning. Wasn't he a bit too lenient? Master means you should act as you like. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently. Black Soul number 18, have you forgotten the self-awareness that the club gave you after so many years? I don't mean that. Black Soul number 18 lowered her head quickly and considered the appropriate words. Then I'll wander around nearby. I dare not relax myself and will always remember my duty. If there's a suitable customer, I'll present it to him at once. After that, Black Soul number 18 stepped back slowly, facing the boss of the club, and walked away step by step. She didn't turn around until she left the door of the club. Looking at this scene, Luaccio thought for a while and suddenly said, Yi, are there more Black Soul envoys like this? Black Soul number 18 was a witch in the Middle Ages before she was transformed. Miss Servant Girl knew what her master was confused about, so she answered softly, some habits have been kept since then. Luaccio smiled and stretched himself. Well, I think I'm the most inactive monarch in the Middle Ages. I heard from the former boss that it took him 100 years to open the critical door. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, but Master only took less than 5 months. Maybe I'm lucky. Luaccio shook his head, grabbing the information of the customer on the table, and walked upstairs. Miss Servant Girl continued her daily work. Qin Shiyu was still meditating. She didn't say anything and had forgotten everything. Me. Didn't anyone think of putting me down? Oh, right, Tainzi was shaking his body vigorously, hoping that someone could respond to his request. But he still went himself. Did he indulge these little bastards too much? Mahoud squinted his eyes and stared at the big recruitment sign of Chuyang Cram School. He threw away the cigarette, but in his mouth, and stamped it out. He took a deep breath and went up the building where the cram school was located, looking like a solemn and stirring wind blowing in his face. Today, Ma Yizhong learned from another good brother. He wore a khaki-colored windbreaker and a hat of the same color. You have a cram school for adults, right? Aye. At the front desk, Mahoud glanced behind and then turned around. I saw it on the billboard downstairs. Sir, the receptionist looked at this uncle in surprise. She seemed to think of something and smiled. Sir, you want to enroll in the cram school for adults, right? Sure. Keep your voice down. Mahoud made a gesture of silence. Sir, it's better for you to relax. The receptionist was still smiling. Sir, you're still working hard for the adult college entrance exam at your age. That's a great thing. I'm starting to admire you. You must be a great person. Is it? Mahoud cleared his throat. He felt that girls nowadays were really good at talking. He slightly closed his beer belly and straightened his chest. Yes, many people say that about me. Of course. The receptionist was so charming that she paid the tuition fee in a daze. When she came back to her senses, she was already sitting in one of the classrooms of the cram school. Damn it, Mahoud looked around. Some of them were in their 20s, and some were in their 30s. He saw some who were about the same age as him. Ma Yizhong casually flipped through the information that was sent to him. In less than 3 minutes, he had already flipped through a book. Who the hell knew what he was reading? X-axis? Y-axis? Z-axis? Just as he was stupefied and listening to the old man on the podium, he suddenly felt something poking his back. Who is it? Mahoud turned around impatiently. He saw a woman wearing a headscarf and sunglasses. He was stunned. You are. The woman slightly lowered her glasses and winked at him. Officer Ma almost lost his grip on his textbook and almost dropped it on the ground. He almost jumped up on the spot. Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. But at this moment, the woman in the back seat covered his mouth and gestured for him to keep quiet. She lowered her voice and said, Sweep your head. Keep your voice down. Mahoud opened his eyes wide and nodded. The woman let go. Damn it. Why is Rin Xiling here? He looked back at the old man on the podium and sat up straight. However, he leaned back and covered his mouth with his textbook. When did you get here? Why didn't I see you? When did I come? Of course, I came earlier than you. You can't see? Isn't it because you were coaxed by the receptionist's little sister and didn't even know your surname before sitting down? I'm observing, investigating. Do you understand? Don't talk nonsense. No, why are you here? Then why are you here? Be honest. Sister-in-law, did you find something? Mahoud sighed. Who was the woman in the back seat? She was known as the cancer of the industry, his sister-in-law. It was out of his expectation that Rin Xiling would be here, but after thinking about it, it seemed to suit her personality. As for the reason, Mahoud already knew. I've been here for 2 days and found nothing. Damn it. The tuition fee of this cram school is ripping me off. Rin Xiling shook her head. My tuition fee will be reimbursed by the informant fee. Otherwise, I'll have to eat dirt this month. You know what? It doesn't matter if I'm hungry, but can you bear to let my baby son be hungry? I'm the only one who makes money to support the family, Brother Ma. I've never seen such a shameless person like you. So the old teacher on the podium patted the ruler in his hand and said in a low voice, "The bearded man in the yellow windbreaker, be quiet. Don't you know what the classroom discipline is?" Mahoud couldn't help but think of the decades of darkness and humiliation under the rule of the teacher. Smoke less. Although the cram school was over, Mahoud and Ron Xiling didn't leave, but came to the rooftop of the building. Mahoud tried to persuade them, but it seemed to be useless. He was also addicted to smoking, so he simply lit one. "How about exchanging information?" Ren Xiling suddenly said. "You go first." Mahoud rolled his eyes and said, "We found from the fifth victim's mobile phone that he had an appointment with someone here before the accident. He called that person teacher. I suspect it's the teacher of this cram school." "What a coincidence." Ren Xiling was stunned. "I also chatted up 2 hotheads and heard that there was a mysterious teacher." "Chatted up?" "Don't mind the details." Ren Xiling blinked. "Don't you think I'm very charming?" "Sister Long, this is the big sister I met the other day." Chapter 337. What's the rumor about the teacher? Mahoud frowned. Ren Xiling said, "It's said that one of the teachers in the cram school is very good. No matter how bad a student's grades are, as long as he is found, his grades will be improved immediately." Ren Xiling lowered her head and looked at the street under the building. It said that several students whose grades couldn't be saved improved by leaps and bounds because of this teacher. Mahoud was stunned. Since they came to this cram school, their grades should be improved, right? No, it said that they're not good at studying, but were forced by their parents to come here. They can't learn well. Ren Xiling thought for a while. "I don't know if this is the case at the beginning." Mahoud nodded and suddenly said, "I think I can go and find out the academic records of the previous victims. Then I'll check who the teachers of this cram school are." Ren Xiling nodded. "Keep in touch." Mahoud nodded in agreement. Unexpectedly, Ren Xiling took out a stack of textbooks from her bag and put them in Mahoud's hand. Sir Ma was puzzled and asked, "What are you doing?" "Homework," Ren Xiling said naturally. "Helping me with my homework. I'm going to continue to come here, dear." "Wait, why is it me? If not you, do you think it's me?" Why did he seem to have heard of this sentence before? "That's it. I have to go back. It's too late. My boss will nag me. You don't know how long-winded he is. You go back first. I'll check this woman's background." Long Shuo looked at Luo dance and said softly when the 2 people on the opposite rooftop left. The little butterfly demon who had seen the ability of this big sister dragon quickly nodded. With a light tap of her legs, she disappeared into the night. Long Shuo turned her eyes and murmured, "What's wrong with this cram school?" She quickly shook her head and easily jumped down from the tall building, landing in the small alley of the building. Soon after, Long Shuo saw a red car drive out. This Lord Long of the demon realm didn't even think about it and directly jumped onto the roof of the red car silently. The people shuttling on the road, the people driving the cars, and even the pedestrians on the road would not notice her existence. It was not difficult for her to distort the light that was projected on her. This woman drives so fast. Long Shuo looked at the cars that were overtaken constantly. She slowly squatted down and put her hand on the roof of the car. Soon she showed a more puzzled expression. First of all, she didn't think the little butterfly monster would lie to her. That was to say, the woman who drove the car did threaten Luo dance and saw through her background at a glance. However, this woman seemed to be just a human being. There is some weak aura in her body, but it's at most a healthy level. Long Shuo couldn't help but feel more puzzled. The aura in this woman's body was not so much from her own cultivation, but from somewhere. For example, she wore some jade magic tools with aura for a long time. Whether she's a human or a ghost, I'll know after I try. She believed that some instinctive reactions would never escape her eyes. Long Shuo gently tapped on the red car with her finger. At the same time, when Ren Xiling saw the red light in front of her, she thought that it was not appropriate to rush over. So she simply stepped on the brake. She had to obey the traffic rules occasionally. Sub-editor Ren suddenly smiled and took out her phone, intending to make a call while waiting for the red light. 120 seconds of red light. What a joke. But she soon found something wrong. The brake system seemed to be out of order. The car didn't intend to slow down at all and rushed straight through the intersection. After leaving that home, Shen Meihuan didn't know where to go with her son. She wanted to leave this place and find a place where no one knew her and take good care of her son who had become like this. But she was worried about when her son would become a cold corpse again. She knew that the mysterious place must be somewhere in this city. If something were to happen to her, would that place help her again? Shen Meihuan couldn't help thinking of a strange contract, but she didn't regret it. Taking a deep breath, Shen Meihuan opened the door of the hotel. She knocked Gufeng out and didn't want to see the man who used to sleep with her. So she could only choose to rent a house outside temporarily. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a woman in a black dress walking out. She seemed to be going out. The uncle at the front desk ran up enthusiastically and said to the woman in the black dress, "Miss Blackwater, are you going out to buy food again?" Shen Meihuan didn't care too much. She went up the stairs and headed upstairs. While the conversation between the woman in the black dress and the uncle was still going on, the woman in the black dress suddenly asked, "Boss, when did this woman check in?" Around 5 or 6 p.m. The uncle thought for a moment and said, "What? Miss Blackwater, do you know her?" "No, I don't," the woman in the black dress said indifferently. She suddenly raised her head and looked at the ceiling of the hotel hall, muttering in her heart, "But there is a faint smell of corpse on her." There were many situations where a person would be contaminated by corpse. She couldn't figure out the woman's origin in the black dress. It seemed that this place was not a long-term residence after all. Just as Blackwater, who had to take care of many small monsters, was considering whether to leave this place or not, the woman who had just climbed up the stairs rushed down and rushed to the uncle. She grabbed his arm nervously and asked, "Boss, what are you doing here? Have you seen my son?" "Your son?" The uncle was stunned and rolled his eyes. "Madam, we just met this afternoon. How can I know your son?" "I mean the one who came with me this afternoon," Shen Meihuan asked more eagerly. The uncle was stunned and blurted out, "Your son? I thought—" "Oh, nothing. The person you're talking about, I think I saw him walk out just now. I asked him where he was going, but he didn't answer me. He didn't say anything." "Thank you." Shen Meihuan loosened her hand and rushed out of the hotel. The uncle of the hotel was confused, but he found that Blackwater had disappeared without him noticing. Boss Luo didn't start reading the information inside immediately after playing with the information cards for a while. The information card slowly rotated in his palm. Suddenly, Luochio put them down. He stood up and waved his hand. On the sofa near the window on the second floor of the club, a thick account book appeared out of thin air. Luochio couldn't help thinking about what kind of criteria the former boss used to choose the opening point of the critical door. These points seemed to be traceable. Then, were there places that the former boss deliberately didn't open? And why did he deliberately not open those places? For this reason, Luochio tried to find some clues from the transaction history that was as numerous as the sand in the Ganges River. But just as he flipped to a certain page, his fingers stopped. Before the page was completely opened, Boss Luo suddenly raised his head and disappeared from the club in an instant. A strong sense of uneasiness caused him to act in this way. The next moment, Luochio was standing on a pedestrian overpass somewhere in the city, watching a red car rush past him directly under the ground. Luochio clearly saw that there was another person standing on the roof of the car. Chapter 338. Calm down, calm down. Rin Xiling forced herself to calm down. Although the brake system malfunction was a serious matter, it was not fatal, right? At this time, keep calm and don't step on the accelerator. She had rich experience on the road, so she pressed the button of the danger light and switched the car to the deceleration lane. Although her palms were sweating because of the close call, she still carefully observed the situation on the road. "Don't be nervous, Rin Xiling. You see, the car is slowing down. Very good, just like this, slowly, slowly." The car began to slow down in the deceleration lane. Long Shuo, who had been observing, could not help but show a trace of surprise. She felt that the woman driving was really calm. Although she had seen her calm side in the face of danger, it was not what Long Shuo wanted to see. Long Shuo's finger gently tapped on the roof of the car again. If you are an ordinary person, I won't let you have an accident. If you're not an ordinary person, let me see what you can do. A loud roar was heard from the car's exhaust pipe. Rin Xiling looked at the speedometer that suddenly soared in disbelief. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. When the car's acceleration reached a certain level, Rin Xiling finally realized that the danger was not far away, but closer. Damn, there was another red light in front of her, but it was not as good as the previous intersection. In front of her, there was a long line of cars. Rin Xiling quickly unfastened her seatbelt and reached out to open the door. But she did not expect that the door would not open. At this moment, the sound of breathing and heartbeat almost overlapped. Many things flashed through Rin Xiling's mind. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes. She could not escape, could not stop. She could only wait for the worst situation to come. She subconsciously stepped on the brakes to the end. Even though she knew that it was useless, she instinctively did not want to give up struggling before she lost consciousness. Suddenly, the car stopped. A strong inertia caused Rin Xiling's body to move forward. She opened her eyes abruptly and pushed the steering wheel hard to stop her inertia. When the car finally stopped less than 10 centimeters away from the car in front of them, Rin Xiling seemed to have lost all her strength. She collapsed on the driver's seat and gasped for breath. He seemed to have returned to normal. After a while, Rin Xiling recovered from this nervous mood. The sound of a horn suddenly came from the convoy behind them. Sub-editor Rin started the engine in a panic. However, she didn't dare to step on the accelerator too much. She didn't drive too far. After passing through the traffic lights, she stopped at a temporary parking lot not far ahead. Rin Xiling opened the door weakly and walked out of the car. Breathing in the turbid air of the street, she felt as if she had been reborn. She was trembling a little. It was obvious that she was quite frightened. Leaning on the door, Rin Xiling lit a cigarette in a panic. She felt that she needed to calm down for a while. Long Shuo on the roof of her car had already disappeared. She's really just an ordinary person. Looking at the reaction of Rin Xiling, who stopped in the distance, she believed in her own judgment. But she still didn't understand what Luo Dan said. Long Shuo shook her head. Although she felt sorry for this woman, at least she didn't hurt her. She was just a little frightened. However, it was necessary for her to reject those who would fight against the demonism. Should I send her something to calm her down? Long Shuo shrugged. She had done similar things over the years. For nearly a century, she was already familiar with it. But the moment she turned to leave, she had to stop. She didn't know when or how she let someone get close to her back, but she didn't notice at all. Even when she saw it in person, she still didn't have the feeling that there was someone behind her. Long Shuo narrowed her eyes. She finally turned around and said indifferently, "Aren't you the boss of that strange shop? What brings you here?" Luoqiu just looked at her quietly, without speaking. Long Shuo thoughtfully glanced at the temporary parking place behind her. "It seems that the woman driving the car has something to do with your shop." Long Shuo skillfully lit a cigarette and took a puff, saying indifferently, "Is she your customer?" Luoqiu still didn't speak. He didn't go far, nor did he leave directly. He just stood there quietly. Long Shuo frowned subconsciously. She couldn't figure out this guy's mind. In fact, it was only the second time that she met this guy. Of course, there were some unpleasant things that happened the last time. But in fact, this club boss who suddenly appeared in front of her gave her a feeling that he was gradually getting stronger. Unfriendly, dangerous, very dangerous. "Even if she's your customer, I didn't do anything to her." Long Shuo said indifferently, "I'm just investigating something. And, as you can see, I don't mean to hurt her, right?" "Of course, she'll be fine." Luoqiu finally said, "I know you don't mean any harm." He said something very softly that made Long Shuo's heart beat fiercely. He said, "But if something happens to her, there will be no Long Shuo in this world. I can guarantee that. Extremely dangerous like an abyss." Long Shuo's uneasiness had directly climbed to the level of approaching death. She instinctively moved her feet slowly. She originally thought that she would take this step forward, but in reality, this step of hers was slightly backwards. "She is not a customer. Long Shirua paused and asked tentatively, "Who is she to you?" Finally, her words made Boss Luo take a step forward. This step seemed to directly cut the space. In one step, he was already in front of Long Shirua. "I heard that you're the last Shinryu," Luochio said indifferently. "I've heard a lot of stories when I was a child, such as Neza in the Investiture of the Gods. Have you heard of it?" Long Shirua narrowed her eyes, and her eyeballs instantly turned into fragments of gold. "Go back. It's best if you don't say anything in the end." At the moment when Long Shirua's whole body was tense, she heard such words that made her very surprised. She even prepared to have some conflict with the boss of this mysterious club. No, the conflict had already happened. This kind of spiritual collision had indeed happened, although her instinct so clearly made her understand that she needed to stay away from this guy, as far away as possible. But as a dragon, her pride and self-esteem couldn't let her escape so easily. "I'm not your customer, and you're not anyone to me," Long Shirua sneered. "Since you know what my original intention is, then you should also know that I need to investigate some dangerous things. The life of the monster race in this city is already so despicable. I don't want to see them hiding in the east and unable to live under the sun." "You don't mean any harm." Luochio shook his head and said, "From your point of view, you didn't do anything wrong. And from another point of view, this woman does need some profound lessons. She really drives too recklessly. I hope that she can improve after this. Don't you want to go back? I may not be able to control myself." "No, I already can't control myself." Luochio stretched out his hand and grabbed the air, and Long Shirua's body seemed to be out of control, as if it was directly pushed by something. When she came to her senses, her neck was already in the hands of the other party. Chapter 339. In the past few days, she accidentally saw a young man who would send Renziling back at night. There were many old neighbors in the old town, so there was some gossip. Occasionally, when he passed by a small restaurant where a group of guests would sit in the shade at night, he heard it. Luochio also met him once just downstairs in the old house. They were talking and laughing. Who could he be? He didn't know when he had a kind of uneasiness, vaguely irritated. Maybe it was just like what the old neighbors said. She was still so young, in the best years of her life, and at the time when she needed someone to comfort her the most. How could she take care of an almost adult child wholeheartedly? Moreover, the child was not her biological child. Who was that young man who would often send her home? Luochio always felt that he was not that kind of impulsive person, but gradually he had an impulse that he couldn't explain. It was like a demon. Maybe it had always existed in his heart, and then it was fed in the months after his father died. Finally, he saw this young man for the second time. This day, he deliberately asked for leave from school early and returned to the old town earlier than usual. The college entrance examination was approaching, so the school couldn't let him go easily. But the teacher knew about this child, and knew that a child who had just lost his father didn't have it easy, so he was more tolerant. Luochio hid in his room, and the closed curtain quietly opened a gap. He felt a sense of guilt and silently looked downstairs. It was not a high-end car, but the man who got off was probably only 25 or 26 years old. It seemed that he was quite good to be able to drive such a car. He also saw Renziling coming out of the car. She seemed to be a little absent-minded. Luochio couldn't hear what they were talking about, but it seemed that they only said a few words, and it was over. After the man nodded, he drove away. But Luochio didn't see Renziling coming up immediately, but leaned against the wall downstairs, lighting a cigarette. This was the first time Luochio saw her smoking. While smoking, she suddenly squatted down, covering her eyes with her hands, and her shoulders slightly trembling. He knew that she was crying. After so long, this was the first time he had seen her so sad. She squatted downstairs alone, silently sobbing. How helpless and painful was she to be like this? Luochio didn't know. He just suddenly had an idea that maybe what the old neighbors said was not unreasonable. He just looked at her. About 10 minutes later, Renziling stood up again, quickly washed her face with mineral water, and then patted her face, opened the door, and walked upstairs. Luochio heard her footsteps outside the door. She gently knocked on the door, asking him if he had eaten, and if he was tired. These were words that could be heard every day. But he didn't choose to open the door, nor did he make a sound. He just silently sat in the room with the light off. She thought he had fallen asleep. Although she had brought him back here, she still felt that he was cold. Really? I saw it. That woman and a young man went in. The hotel. Which woman? And that one? Isn't it that one? I knew that such a young man couldn't help it. Wait, did someone pass by just now? Who? He looked like Lao Luo's son. Did I see it wrong? Luocio felt that he shouldn't come here. But he still came here unconsciously. Something was driving him to come here, and he felt that he really couldn't control himself. He wasn't in a good state, but he did see the car that had sent her back. It was parked outside the hotel. The hotel was not high, and all the hotels in the old town were like this. Perhaps it was more suitable to call it a restaurant. Luocio suddenly felt a little ridiculous. Even if he came here, could he do anything? Should he do something? Just as he was hesitating whether it would be better for him to leave, some things were better left unsaid for both parties. Perhaps, even if he was alone, he might be able to pass. So be it. But he saw the man walking in the lobby of the hotel. Luocio was stunned. He knew that he shouldn't continue to get involved, but something was driving him. He quietly followed behind the man, but he didn't see him enter the floor provided for people to stay in. He only saw him in a private room on the second floor. The room seemed to be very lively. He took a deep breath and quietly opened the door. Before that, he even heard Run Xiling's voice. It was so loud. No way. I will never give up the custody of Luocio. What custody? Is this your biological son? Another voice. It was the voice of a middle-aged man. Luocio thought he knew the source of the voice. The person who responded to Run Xiling with a cold voice obviously had the same surname as him, a cousin of his father. The room was full of people with the surname Luo, people who dared to come from other cities. At first, Luocio's father was assigned to work in this city, and later settled down, living in the same place as them. Talk about marriage. Who is closer? We have the same ancestors' blood. And you, if you say you are his biological mother, we will never say a word. But you are just a woman who came in later. Will you be so kind to take care of him? How old are you? Can you bear it? What a sarcastic voice. I have said many times, please don't come to me again. I will not give up the custody. How many times had she faced these people? I think you are just greedy for money. What you are greedy for is my poor cousin's property. To put it bluntly, that's all. Suddenly, Run Xiling didn't say a word, but she threw a pile of documents on the table heavily. She looked at the people at the table and said forcefully, "These, all the property after my husband's death, including the pension and the real estate certificate, and the property that was distributed to me after his death. I have entrusted all of them to my representative lawyer, and all of them are under the name of Luocio. When he becomes an adult, all of these will belong to him. Before that, I will absolutely not use a single cent of these treasures. Hello, I am the representative lawyer of Qing Yuan Law Firm. This is my card." The man said indifferently, "Miss Ren has gone through the relevant procedures here, and I guarantee that all of these are legally valid. If you don't believe me, you can take a copy of these documents to any notary organization for verification. If you have any questions, I can also answer them." Lawyer, this man, is he a lawyer? What can you give this child? Yes, I am not his biological mother, but we have lived together for at least a few years. And you? Do you know what this child likes to eat? What he likes to wear? What songs he likes to listen to? When is his birthday? What does he like to play? Have you guys ever given him a call during the festive season? Do you want custody? With these, does he need you to support him? What can you give him? Don't you also want these? You, since you don't want anything, what can you give him? A voice that turned into anger out of humiliation. Ren Xiling pointed at her face and said loudly, as if she was making an oath, "I can give him a home." Why did she need to be strong? Because she knew that she needed to face these malicious words, and she needed to protect a father who had just lost a child. If she was not strong, if she was not covered with thorns like a hedgehog, how could she take care of that child? Luocio gently closed the door. No one knew that he had been here. However, some people knew that he had hit someone that day. It seemed that he had acted up in a small village nearby. He had suddenly slapped a middle-aged woman hard on the face. Slap! It was a very loud and clear sound. His slender fingers accurately whipped her face, which seemed as if it would break at the slightest touch. She didn't know how much strength it had, but it was obvious that it instantly left a red handprint on her delicate face. After being slapped, Long Shiroa's mind went blank for a moment. She had never had such an experience. No, it should be said that she had never had such an experience after she became mature. When was the last time? Thousands of years ago. 10,000 years ago. When she was a child, she felt a burning sensation on her neck, but it was not that she couldn't breathe. It was just that the pain on her face made her feel an unprecedented humiliation. Long Shiro slowly lowered her head. Even though her body was lifted up by the neck, she was obviously not in a hurry. Her golden eyes seemed to dim a little, turning into dark gold, but also more solid. You want to start a war with me here, don't you? He could clearly feel Long Shiroa's hidden anger. Luo Qiu didn't waver in the slightest in the face of this stormy anger. I just want you to know something. Luo Qiu suddenly let go of his hand. Long Shiro stood on the ground. He then continued, We didn't come back from the ashes. We weren't forced to disappear by those lunatics from the West. We have always been walking in the world. In the blink of an eye, an ancient and strange door appeared behind the club's boss with a rumble. Slowly, it opened up a little. It was this tiny strand of hair that revealed some of its secrets. Long Shiro suddenly took a big step back. Her forehead was instantly moistened. Her almost dark gold eyes returned to normal black and white. She even couldn't help but slightly tremble. She seemed to hear countless wailing sounds. She seemed to feel a kind of whisper from the whole world. She seemed to only see desolation and endless silence in front of her. She seemed to be in the endless barren land. The sea turned into mulberry fields. The sky fell and the earth cracked. The world seemed to return to nothingness in the next moment. She was the Shinryu who protected this land, but only this land. But above the land, he was right. In this era, in this age of chaos, how could there be someone who could compete with this place? Boom! A loud sound like thunder rang in Long Shiroa's mind. It made her forget the poking pain on her neck. It made her forget the humiliation of being slapped. Her mind went blank again. This was the sound of this horrible door closing. It was so heavy that she couldn't bear it. The roaring cars on the road caused the airflow on the road blue to Long Shiroa's back. A kind of coolness like water meeting wind helped her to recover some of her blank consciousness. She and the new boss of the club were still here. In this city, everything seemed to have returned to its original state. Sorry, I almost don't hit people, but sometimes I do get a little impulsive. She heard such a light voice. Instead of saying that it was an apology, it was better to say that it was just explaining something. I didn't hurt you, right? Luo Qiu got closer to Long Shiro. His finger lightly scratched the palm print on her face. The red mark faded instantly. Long Shiro subconsciously took a step back. She was full of fear and a trace of fear that she didn't want to admit. So she couldn't respond to the situation. Master! At this moment, the voice of Miss Maid came from Luo Qiu's back. Miss Maid seemed to break the space and walk directly to him. Long Shiro clearly saw that the eyes of this woman, which were bluer than the sea, became deeper. Her hands were slowly burning with the extremely troublesome black flame. It seemed that she was about to enter the state of battle. She might even say nothing and directly start the fight. Lunatic, Long Shiro suddenly said. She turned around and jumped to the roof of the nearby building. In a flash, she had disappeared in the night of the city. She swallowed the humiliation of this slap, but didn't have the idea of a life-and-death fight. In front of that door, her pride was completely torn and scattered into a pile of useless things. Master, just now, seeing that Long Shiro had left, Miss Maid also withdrew her black flame and came to Luo Qiu's side. Luo Qiu heaved a sigh of relief. After looking at the night sky silently, he said softly, "A person who is easy to talk to is easy to be bullied. But if he is a lunatic or emotionally unstable, people will feel a little afraid of him. It's okay, I just warned her. You can go back first." Yi nodded. She glanced at Ren Xiling, who was leaning against the car, door not far away, and seemed to understand something. But she still felt a little scared. If the car didn't recover in time, would she have been lying in the hospital? Rin Xiling looked up at the building where she lived now. She didn't plan to go up. She took out the makeup mirror and looked at her face carefully. She didn't want to let Luochio see something wrong with her face. This guy's eyes were as sharp as a thief's. He really inherited the skills of his boss, who used to be a policeman. She planned to walk up after taking a puff of her cigarette, but she didn't know why. As she smoked, she squatted down. Her eyes were a little wet, and she had a feeling of crying. She looked so lonely alone, but she couldn't let others see her fragile side. 1 minute, just 1 minute of crying. Rin Xiling, do you understand? She said to herself. Why are you squatting here? Just 1 minute. Rin Xiling heard a very familiar voice. Luochio's voice. Her eyes were a little red, and the cigarette but was still in her fingers. Rin Xiling squatted and raised her head. Seeing Luochio here, she slightly opened her mouth. It hurts. She was so shocked that the burning cigarette but hurt her. She quickly threw away the cigarette but in her hand, lowered her head, and stood up. At the same time, she quickly rubbed her eyes. There's sand in my eyes. What are you doing here? No, isn't the light on upstairs? Why are you downstairs? Luochio raised the shopping bag in his hand and said, Don't you need daily necessities? I don't think you can remember these things. Rin Xiling smiled embarrassedly. Have you eaten? No, there's no time. Rin Xiling shook her head. Let's go back. I'll make something for you. Luochio said, I just bought some meatballs. Let's make some wine meatballs. With that, Luochio directly went upstairs. Rin Xiling was stunned and quickly followed. She pushed Luochio's back with both hands and quickened her pace. I can't control my stomach. Boy, hurry up. Throw away the cigarette box in your bag before you come in. Luochio said without turning his head. Sub-editor Rin could only answer pitifully, I know. When entering the door, Rin Xiling threw the cigarette box into the trash can in the corridor. At this time, Luochio suddenly stood at the door and turned around. He said indifferently, and throw away the things you hid in the closet. Okay. Sub-editor Rin kowtowed weakly. Then, welcome home. Rin Xiling was stunned and suddenly looked up, but she saw Luochio had already entered the room. She couldn't help crying. After a minute, her eyes turned red again. Shen Meihuan was anxiously looking for her son on the street. Where could he go? Could it be that he had regained some of his consciousness? Many questions appeared in her mind. She even worried that something would happen to her son in his current state. She blamed herself that she shouldn't have gone out to buy things so rashly. After several hours, she still couldn't find her son, which almost drove Shen Meihuan crazy. Since her son was finally back, please don't take him away from her again. She prayed like this. Perhaps Shen Meihuan heard her prayer and finally found her son. Chapter 340. In front of the amusement center, Shen Meihuan didn't dare to approach her son. Why did he stare at this place? Shen Meihuan followed his line of sight and looked at the signboard that was not lit in some places. It should be around 10 to 20 years old, right? This place seemed to be the childhood memory of a generation. But with the process of urbanization, the appearance of more entertainment venues, and the development of more large-scale theme parks for mobile games, this place was no longer the same as before. Its light seemed to have dimmed quite reasonably. As a result, the recruitment process became a failure. This was the first place she took her son to play since she came to this city. Shen Meihuan's silent stare evoked memories. Perhaps it also evoked her son's memories. Do you still remember this place? She gently walked to her son's side, but she didn't get an answer. He stood there quietly, his eyelids barely blinking as he looked at the yellowing signboard. Would he be thinking about something? Shen Meihuan suddenly had an impulse. She grabbed her son's arm and took him into the deserted amusement center that seemed to close at any time. Perhaps this place could evoke more memories and even make him return to normal. With such expectation, she couldn't help but speed up. The inside of the amusement center was even more deserted than the outside. Most of the computers were shut down. At this time, there was only one basketball machine. In front of it, there was an old man who looked quite energetic, skillfully refreshing the score on the scoreboard. The salesman seemed to be dozing off. Even if there was business, he didn't show any enthusiasm. He mechanically counted the game coins, received the money, and continued to doze off. Shen Meihuan didn't care about the deserted place and the bad attitude of the salesman. Instead, she felt a little lucky that no one was paying attention to her. This was actually a good thing for her. At least no one would notice her son's abnormality. In front of a tortoise machine, Shen Meihuan tried to make her son remember more things. Do you remember? The first time you came here, you played this kind of game. Yes, although this machine is different from the first one, do you still remember? At that time, you played for an hour and refused to leave no matter what. You even threw a tantrum. But her son didn't respond. It seemed that he had heard it, or maybe he didn't hear it all. But she didn't lose heart. She grabbed the hammer hanging in front of the machine and handed it to her son. She also saw that her son didn't grasp it tightly and the hammer fell to the ground. Shen Meihuan picked it up again, and the hammer fell from her son's hand again. Pick it up, drop it. Pick it up, drop it. Over and over again, Shen Meihuan's eyes were full of perseverance. She didn't show any impatience. She felt incredulous. In recent years, as the business of the contracted factories gradually went down, her temper seemed to be increasing day by day, and she gradually became impatient. But now, when she did this repetitive, monotonous, and even uncomfortable thing, she didn't have any dissatisfaction. Finally, when her son learned to grasp the hammer, Shen Meihuan was happy from the bottom of her heart. She began to teach him how to hit the flashing tortoises with the hammer. It was very clumsy, and the result was terrible. But she held her son's hand and felt a kind of happiness that she hadn't experienced for a long time. She remembered the past. A long time ago, when her son was a child, she would always patiently teach him how to walk over and over again. She would always patiently teach him how to babble. At that time, she never felt the slightest bit of irritation. Even if he only learned how to take a step, even if he only learned how to say an unclear word, it was enough to make her happy for half a day. Until this time, Shen Meihuan suddenly found that it was the happiest time of her life. She hoped that her son would become a dragon. When did she forget the original, purest happiness? On that day, on the day he came to this world, on the day his small palm opened slightly in front of her eyes. How could she forget those things? Shen Meihuan didn't know when she stopped. Her son's hand, holding the hammer, also stopped. She blamed herself, crazily feeling guilty, and choked with sobs. I shouldn't only care about the business, and I shouldn't force you to learn. She couldn't finish her words. The most tender part of her heart seemed to be pierced by something, and it was like a fishbone stuck in her throat. She shed tears silently. Suddenly, her hand fell down, and the hammer hit the head of one of the plastic tortoises. That was her son's own hand. But he still didn't speak, and his eyes were still dull. He just moved like this. But this simple and mechanical movement was enough for Shen Meihuan to see the light of dawn. She couldn't help but stare at the young face. 2 bottles of Coke, 10 yuan. Here you are. More than an hour passed quietly in front of the old tortoise machine. It was almost time for the amusement center to close. Shen Mei's footsteps quickened as she walked towards her son. Even though she was only looking at him from afar, she felt a sense of satisfaction, as if her entire heart had been filled up. Why did she forget this feeling in the past few years? However, she quickly stopped in her tracks. In front of her, a woman in a black dress was walking towards her. Shen Meihuan was stunned. If she remembered correctly, she should have met this woman once in front of the hotel. But why was she here? Shen Meihuan lowered her head subconsciously and walked past the woman. But at the moment when she passed by, she heard the woman in a black dress say, "You're so kind." She said, "Why don't you bury him?" Shen Meihuan stopped and turned around in a panic. She was sure that she never knew this woman. She had only met her once. But why did she know this? What else did she know? "You. Who are you?" Shen Meihuan was alert. "Have you been following me? It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is you." The woman in black shook her head and said, "Although I don't know what method you used to make him like this, I'm not sure. But do you really think it's okay? Why disturb his peace when he has already passed away?" "What do you know?" Shen Meihuan suddenly became agitated. The woman sighed. "I am also raising some children. They are even more important than my life for me. I know how Mother feels. You know, then don't stop me. But you have to know that your son is full of the smell of corpse. This is not a good thing for you. You will have problems with your body after a long time. The woman in the black dress seemed to be reluctant, but she still said, Listen, he may become a walking dead. That's a state you don't want to see. Shen Mei Huan looked at her more vigilantly. I don't know you. I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't harass me. I have lost him once. I can't let myself lose him again. Since you know how a mother feels, you should know me. Why are humans always so stubborn? She could only sigh, but soon she laughed bitterly. But I am not qualified to say anything. I also have a stubborn afterlife. Well, I live upstairs. If you need anything, you can knock on the door of my room. I hope there won't be such a day. You, who are you? Blackwater, she whispered. My name is Blackwater. Chapter 341. It was almost midnight, but the door of the pet hospital was still open and the lights were still on. Little Butterfly Monster was sitting at the front desk, wearing the beige uniform of the pet hospital, looking at the door frequently. Sister Long still hadn't come back. Luo Dance lay on the table, feeling bored. She was fiddling with a small bottle that used to be filled with honey, which had already been cleaned. She tied a blue ribbon at the mouth of the bottle. She didn't know why, but she felt that it would make her happy. After a while, Butterfly Monster couldn't bear it anymore. She raised her head, looking at Sister Su Zijuan, who was sitting not far away. Sister Su, do you think Sister Long is in trouble? Su Zijuan yawned, patting her lips with her pale palm. In my opinion, this old woman is the source of the trouble. It's good enough that she didn't make trouble for others. Don't worry, at least in this era, I can't think of anything that can hurt this old woman. She won't die. As the saying goes, a scourge lives for 1,000 years. What else could Luo Dance say? The automatic door of the hospital was suddenly opened, and the one who came in was Long Shiraw. Luo Dance walked in expressionlessly. Seeing this, Su Zijuan stood up, stretching herself, looking at Luo Dance indifferently. See, speak of the devil. I told you that this old woman is fine, right? Well, I'm sleepy and it's time to sleep. If you didn't ask me to accompany you, I wouldn't sit here. Luo Dance still felt that what else could she say? You're the one who's sitting right here. Also, don't you only sleep during the day? Butterfly Monster felt that she was wronged. But since Sister Long came back, this grievance was nothing. What gave her a headache was that, based on her experience, Su Zijuan would definitely have a good quarrel with Sister Long after she said those mean words that she didn't mean. But Long Shirua acted like she didn't hear it. She walked inside without saying a word. Su Zijuan's provocation was totally ignored. Seeing that Long Shirua was about to enter, Su Zijuan shouted, Old woman, your pants are down. Ah, what did you say? Long Shirua turned around absent-mindedly. Damn it. This old woman's head must have been hit by a door. Su Zijuan stared at Long Shirua inconceivably, frowning, and keenly caught something. What happened? Nothing. I just want to sleep. Long Shirua just shook her head. Long Shirua's late at night. TSK. Seeing that Sister Su Zijuan was smiling, but the anger in her eyes was rising, Butterfly Monster quickly walked out from the front desk and said, Oh, right. Sister Long, you must be tired, right? I'll go get some hot water for you. Sister Su, are you hungry? The Type B negative blood popsicle I made yesterday should be ready. I'll get some for you, don't quarrel. Just when Su Zijuan's fighting spirit was getting stronger, Long Shou suddenly said, Pianxian, I have something to do these days. I have to go out for a while. Oh, Sister Long, are you going to pick herbs? No, I have to go on a long trip. Long Shou said slowly, If the patients come, you can read my notes and prescribe medicine for them. Anyway, it's all the same problems. The things in storage are enough for you to use for a long time. Well, I know. Long Shou nodded and said, Oh, right, don't go to the cram school these days. Wait until I come back. Although it was a pity, Butterfly Monster still nodded obediently and didn't ask why. After saying that, Long Shou, who had just said that she was going to sleep, seemed to have forgotten this sentence and went out directly. When she went out, Butterfly Monster noticed that Sister Long subconsciously touched her neck. She didn't know why, but she felt that Sister Long seemed to be afraid of something. Was it an illusion? Inside the police station, a group of burly men were scratching their heads and discussing what Officer Ma had ordered them to do. 2 sets of high school exam questions, which were extremely heavy. God knew what Officer Ma had experienced. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be for his son. His son was studying abroad 2 years ago. His age didn't match at all. The only young police officer who knew the truth didn't dare to say anything. This is the lesson of Officer Ma, whom you respect and idolize in the cram school. Of course, because of these subordinates, Sir Ma was hiding in his office, leisurely drinking the kung fu tea before work. When the case was in a stagnant state, he needed to relax his mind. Sir Ma, Section Chief Chin is here for you. But Ma Hao didn't drink it and almost scalded his tongue. He rushed to his seat and grabbed the pen, lowering his head to read the document seriously. Don't pretend. The things on the tea table have betrayed you, and the boiled water proves what you were doing just now. Old Chin sat down just like that. Ma Hao smiled embarrassedly and said with a hollow laugh, Old Chin, how about I ask the director to allow you to participate in our investigation? With your observation ability, it's really a waste if you don't follow us outside to solve the case. The forensics team has already helped you solve the case. Old Chin said indifferently. If we have to do the investigation, what do we need you for? Do we only need one forensics team here? I'm just saying. Ma Hao coughed and said seriously, It's so early, what's the matter? We have notified Gu Jiajia's family to come and claim his body, but no one came these 2 days. No one came. Ma Hao was stunned. I don't think his mother will leave her son's body here. Let me ask for you. Old Chin nodded and suddenly said, Besides, there's a strange thing. What strange thing? Old Chin said indifferently. Do you still remember the scene of Gu Jiajia's fall? Ma Hao nodded. It's still vivid in my mind. He fell from such a high place, and his head was broken. How can I forget it all of a sudden? At the beginning, we found some tissues in Gu Jiajia's brain, and then we took it for testing, and the report came out. Old Chin looked at Ma Hao and said, It's a mutated cell tissue. I'm afraid he has brain cancer. You mean he died of illness, not from falling? Ma Hao was stunned. He did fall to death. Old Chin said expressionlessly. Then you mean he knew he had cancer, so he committed suicide? Ma Hao was stunned. No. Why didn't we know Gu Jiajia had a medical history? How can his family not know about this disease? Did he secretly go to the hospital, test it himself, and then hide it from us? Can he bear it alone? I'm just providing you with information, and I won't make a judgment for the time being. Old Chin shook his head. But it's strange that we can't find these mutated cell tissues in the deceased. Ma Hao shook his head. I don't quite understand. Old Chin had to say, I tested again last night, and I found that the cancer cells in the deceased disappeared. Ma Hao frowned. Is it possible that the deceased didn't have the disease at all? Old Chin looked at Ma Hao like looking at an idiot. Then where do you think those cells came from, if not from the deceased? I know. There's something wrong with the corpse. It's fake. IQ. Ma Hao was not happy at this moment. Then explain to me, how did it suddenly disappear? Do you think the cancer will be cured automatically when a person dies? That's why I came to you. Old Chin said indifferently. There's only one situation where we make a mistake, and that's when we miss something, not when we test something wrong. That's strange. Ma Hao frowned.